Which side are you on? Because I'm going to put you in a box and tell you what kind of person you are based on who you fucking voted for. You know what I mean? Like, how twisted
100%.
is that shit? How twisted is it? Because I might not agree with a certain candidate's points, but certain things in this party appeal to my beliefs more. That's totally fine.
That's fine.
That's totally fine.
And you say it like that.
It's fine. You know what I'm saying?
They appeal to my beliefs more.
Exactly. And that's really what it is to me, right? That's really what it is. But it's really gotten to a point where it's like, you voted for Trump, you're a racist bigot. You voted for you vote for the Democrats, you're a tree hugger and you're kumbaya. Bullshit. Bullshit.
What's cooking, everybody? I am joined in the bunker today by Mr. Shannon Johnson. Shan is a co-host of the Faces of the Future podcast, which you may remember because I had on his other two co-hosts, Miles Matthews and Toby Mustafa, aka Moose, in numbers 42 and 47. And this conversation here now completes the triumvirate. I've appreciated all three of those episodes. They each bring something different to the table, and Shan is the fucking man, so I think you're going to enjoy this one. Now, if you haven't used the link in my description to go look at buying an 8 Sleep Pod Pro mattress or an 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover, hear me out. I know that buying something like this is an investment, especially if you're buying the mattress. And a lot of you may have bought a mattress 5 years ago and it's perfectly fine and you want to keep doing it. Here's what I'll say. You sleep, I sleep, we all got to sleep. But how well do we sleep? 8 Sleep is the first mattress company to effectively bring tech and science to mattresses. Other companies have tried it. It's not very good. 8 Sleep is a legit Silicon Valley company. Their founder, Matteo, has been called the Elon Musk of sleep. Effectively, what they do is they give you 6 hours worth of sleep and make it feel like 8 on any other mattress you've ever slept on in your life. And they do this through their proprietary app, which leverages their technology. I'm going to use all the buzzwords right here. That plugs right into your bed and measures you. So it measures your body temperature, it measures your REM, it measures your sleeplessness and restlessness throughout the night, etc. And within the first night's sleep, it will optimize to how you sleep. That's how it improves you. It's a total life changer. And look, the mattress, obviously full investment. The cover's half the price. The cover's what I use, by the way. So if you like the current feel of your mattress or you don't want to buy a full mattress, buy the cover. Comes in queen or king sizes. It does all the same things. Hooked into the app just like the mattress. Again, total life changer. So use the link in my description and use the code TRENDIFIER, TRENDIFIER, at checkout, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. If you are the rare individual who actually is disappointed within 30 days, you can return it for full refund, and the company, by the way, H-Sleep, is phenomenal to deal with. Their customer service is impeccable. So even if you like it, but you have questions, call them up. They're reachable at all times. It's great. You will not regret this at all. It's going to change your life. Anyway, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. If you're on YouTube right now, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button, and leave a like and comment on the video if you would, please. To everyone who's been doing that, by the way, huge help. Huge help in the algorithm there on YouTube. Obviously, audio has grown a lot faster than YouTube has for my show. I'd like to get YouTube up towards audio numbers, so all help I get there is appreciated, and to everyone who's been doing that, again, thank you. Also, all the people leaving 5-star reviews with a comment on Apple Podcasts, that is a big help. I know a lot of the audience now is on Spotify, but there is still a sizable audience on Apple Podcasts. There's still plenty of users out there who use it. So when new listeners are coming to the page, they're checking out the comments and they're seeing like what the show's about before they give it a try. And it's a huge help if they see some good stuff there. So if you own an iPhone and you have the Apple Podcast app on there, even if you don't listen to me on there, if you could take a second to leave a 5-star review with a comment, it is a huge help. Finally, to all the people who have been using the word of mouth thing and spreading around a favorite episode to a friend each week, thank you very much. It's something I started in the last few weeks because it was already happening organically before then. I wanted to encourage my listeners to help grow the base here. Obviously, I grow because you guys grow, and all help is appreciated. So if you have a friend who listens to podcasts who you think hasn't listened to this podcast yet, pick out your favorite episode this week. Maybe it's this one, and send it to them, see if they'll give it a try. That's the biggest help I could possibly get here. And again, to everyone who's done that and will do it, thank you very, very much. That said, you know what it is. I'm Julian Dorey, and this is TRENDIFIER. Let's go! This is one of the great questions in our culture. Where is the nuance? You're giving opinions and calling them facts. You feel me? Everyone understands this, but few seem to do it. If you don't like the status quo, start asking questions. Have you been looking at this Israel-Palestine stuff at all?
Yeah.
that tells me you're looking at it heavy. What are your thoughts?
My girlfriend actually is Israeli, so.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So it hits close to home.
Yeah.
And for people that don't know, there was the whole thing, I guess it was, this was like 6 weeks ago now, something like that, where I guess Hamas was firing from Palestinian territory into Israel, and then Israel responded, and they responded fast, and it seems like they went and they took down some buildings that they obviously, or we hope, they didn't intend to take down. Mm-hmm. Is that about right?
They have an Iron Dome. Do you know what the Iron Dome is?
The Iron Dome.
The Iron Dome is a technology that Israelis have that intercepts bombs in the air. Doesn't get all of them, but it gets a majority of them. So a lot of time those bombs that are being fired in the air from the Israelis are to stop the bombs that are coming in. You're not going to get them all. But they did fire on Hamas, the Hamas group, the terrorist group.
It is.
You know what I mean? So
it is. People need to, and that distinction's so important too, because there's a huge difference between a terrorist group who is going to do what the fuck they want to do. Mm-hmm. You know, that's how these groups work. Mm-hmm. Who happens to be taking advantage of a situation and then dragging it upon the people there. And obviously, there's been, that's what, a 3,000, 6,000 year history where
of war.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, there's still like kind of that, I guess, the line you have to draw where when you see how Israel responds to stuff, how much of it is intended for them to defend themselves, literally, and how much of it is intended to take out Hamas, who also, not for nothing, but they're like some of the biggest drug dealers in the world. Like, that's how they fund what they do. It's a crazy story. If people haven't looked that up, I think that was in Politico.
The problem is with this kind of stuff is a lot of people don't look these things up and do their own research. They just repost what they see on social media, and that's an issue. You have to look at it deeply and then look at the context of what's going on so you can really understand the history of it, because like you just said, it goes back thousands of years. Mm-hmm. And sadly, this happens every couple years, and it's probably going to continue to happen, sadly.
Unfortunately, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I don't, I try to balance between being a cynic about stuff and being a cynic about stuff.
Right.
Because it is hard not to. And then when you add in the fact that this is not, this isn't like a recent election or something. To your point, it's thousands of years. And that whole, literally family trees of tradition passed down and I guess distrust, and that seems to be at the core of it. It's hard for me to wrap my head around it, and it always has been, but I guess it hits close to home with you, with your fiance and everything. But is this something you were aware of before you started dating her, or you learned through her?
Absolutely. I had no clue about everything that was going on with the situation before I met her, and like, you can't fathom it happening here. That's why it's so like, you don't even know how to react sometimes. You know what I mean? And I see my fiance and her family upset because they're watching their homeland get bombed. Their historical buildings being torn down, people being killed. So it's just madness. It's chaos, is what it is. And like I said, it seems like there's no end in sight for me, the way I look at it, because the Israelis and the Muslim community that's there, they're not going anywhere. You know what I mean? They're not going anywhere. So it's like, how do they get to a place amongst themselves where there can just be peace?
Yeah.
You know? So, it's scary. It's definitely scary. I mean, I can't imagine being in a place where there's bomb sirens going off and me and you got to run to a bomb shelter. We don't know where a bomb's going to hit. If we don't have a bomb shelter near us or close to us, what are we going to do? I can't imagine being in that situation. I mean, it just gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a terrifying situation to be in, and it's sad. It's very sad.
Yeah, my buddy Nico was in here a few weeks ago, and he was going over, he's a dual citizen of Greece, and he's like, I wouldn't pretend to understand it myself because I lived most of my life like in America, 9 months out of the year growing up, and like in Greece there hasn't been like a lot of war during his life. But he's like, my grandparents and my parents, like they know war. They know what that is. They know what that looks like, and they understand what it's like where you wake up in the morning and you don't know if that's going to be it because a bomb comes or something like that. And it's such a foreign concept for us in America, which we're very lucky that it is. But I don't know. I've been thinking about this so much, and I always compare it on a frankly one-off type situation, which is, you saw what happened in September 11th here and how horrifying that was. And granted, that was a lot of people in one day. That was thousands of people in one day, and the whole country shut down, like all these things. I'm not saying that happens every day in these places. That wouldn't be realistic to say. But I guess the level of expectancy that people who live in Israel and Palestine have, that like, one day a building could come down and 150 people die, and it could be a Tuesday, it could be a Thursday, it could be a Sunday, whatever. That is a crazy, crazy concept. And
Hey, man, listen, I mean, those kind of things like suicide bombers and shootings and killings and stuff happen in Israel frequently. I want to say not bombings on an everyday basis, but things happen on an everyday basis, right? The Israeli military is all over the place in the Israeli territories in Israel. I mean, even such things as somebody leaving a bag somewhere, that's going to get looked into, anything, anywhere. I mean, people are always on alert. People are always carrying things to protect themselves because you never know what's going to happen. And here, we really can't fathom that because we can't relate. It doesn't happen here, especially where we live growing up in the suburbs. We ain't got to worry about shit like that. Ever. When have you ever thought walking out of your house, I need to take a gun with me or I need to carry a knife with me? Probably never. All right? It's quiet. It's laid back. It's reserved. I mean, and there's not that much. There's hate here, but there's not hate on a level that we see on a daily basis. So, I mean, and I think not even just like in an Israeli situation, but all over the world. I mean, we are so lucky to be here. I don't think people really understand the danger that people have walking out of their doors living in some of these countries like a Mexico or a Colombia or even like dictatorship regimes like you see in China and the Koreas. Like, we wouldn't even know how to handle those kind of things. And especially with everyone, with our First Amendment, so you can say what you want to say. Other countries, you can't do that. You can't go to North Korea and start spouting off about, the powers that be, or go anywhere and talk about the powers that be in most places. You're going to end up dead. You're going to end up missing. I mean, people really can't put it into perspective here. So I think when it comes to these kind of situations, you really got to take your time and do your research before you go off and saying really anything, especially putting out there on social media.
I want to come back to that First Amendment point you made at some point. We'll get there because that's interesting time for the First Amendment. But you're 100% right, comparatively speaking, as far as what you can and can't do in other countries. I think right now there is an enormous complacency in our society. And I can never put this in words the best, so hopefully I do it justice. But the way I look at it in my head is that we are constantly we're tearing ourselves down and treating our country as it's the worst of whatever it is, whatever system we're going after, instead of tearing down the things that are wrong with it and still recognizing that, like, hey, comparatively speaking, we're a lot better. I mean, dude, I even use this example with our government. I can't fucking stand our government.
For sure.
Can't stand them. Like, I think it's a groupthink society. I think the fact that we've had two parties for however fucking long it's been is absurd. I think that most of these people don't fucking like you. I think that they are all about staying in power, and I think they do a great job doing that. That said, I can say all of that out of one side of my mouth and then say out of the other side of my mouth that even if all that is true, and I happen to think it is, leave that up to other people to decide, we still have the best government system in the world. If it's a piece of shit, it is the best piece of shit on a steaming pile of shit.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so it's interesting to me that so many people right now are, you know, looking almost like romantically at other places, like, oh yeah, you could go there, you could do this, look at how well they do this thing or whatever. And maybe in some examples as one-offs, they're correct. But if you want to look at like other systems, and I'll use the extreme example, like if you want to go to China, knock yourself out, go to fucking China. See how you like it. Ask the NBA players how they like China.
Right.
And they're not a lot, and that's sketchy. Like, they can't talk about it because they owe so much fucking money from China that, like, it's a bad business move, which is like a whole, I'm not going to go there right now. But, like, they get it.
Oh, yeah.
They get it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, I like to use the example of when Trump won the election in 2016. And then you had, now, I'm not a Trump fan by any means. I'm not really a fan of any politician, like you just said. I don't like the Bidens and the whole 9 yards either. But when people were like, oh, I'm going to move to somewhere else, go to fuck ahead. First of all, nobody wants any Americans in their country. So take that into consideration first and foremost. And then, like you said, it's not going to get much better than here. No. Because you could say whatever the fuck you want, literally, and really not get in any trouble for it. And you can come and go anywhere as you please. I mean, if you even look at some places, like some places have restricted internet access where the internet shuts off and you can't access certain sites, period. So people really just don't have a fucking clue what it's like to live, not go on a vacation, to live in another country, because we just came from the Dominican Republic as a group. As we leave the airport and we're riding through, it's the slums. It's shacks. It's people walking around barefoot. People like they've been wearing the same clothes for 10 weeks, months, if that. So and our driver goes, do you guys want to stop and get some melons off this truck? No. No. First of all,
take us to the airport.
Take us to where we got to be. Like, we're all dressed in Nike clothes and we got a nice gear. We got watches and stuff on. Like, when people see that, they're thinking probably, oh, these motherfuckers got money, when we really don't. But the way it looks like we do. So I mean, other countries are so dangerous. Like I said, like Mexico, the cartels are at war with the military.
It's insane.
It's insane.
People don't know about this either. It's
insanity. They're at war with the military, and it's like they're kind of winning. So that's what kind of makes it even crazy, that they even have the means and the resources to be able to compete. Exactly. That cartel money is different. I'm holding
up a money sign here.
You know, they have the means and the resources to compete with the military. So when you think about that in the grand scheme of things, everything here isn't perfect, but it's really not. It's not as bad as we like to think it is a lot of times.
It's comparatively speaking. I think you use that exact phrase, and that's the thing I try to underline and bold, because like you talk about that example, just one in the Dominican. The difference with that is that is the norm there. Trust me. I mean, I don't need to tell you, like, we have some problems in this country where we have plenty of people who have been left behind. We have a wealth gap that's gone like this. I know you guys talk about this on your show, and it's like, okay, that is problematic. But the large majority of individuals here are not living in that. They are not living in a complete slum. There are some people who are, and I think that's a problem. But again, it's a problem I want to fix. It's not a problem that it's like, that's the norm and that's why we're the worst country in the world. That's the rhetoric where it starts to get really funky for me. And like, to tie it back to the original Israel-Palestine point, like, you talk to people who are from either one of those places. The love they have for their country and their land is insane. And I love that from every angle. I love that. they also, especially when you're talking to people who are here now, like your fiance's family immigrated here, they recognize that, hey, I love that, but there is a big price to pay to even try to have that, because we have so much other shit that goes on there, and it's like you don't have to worry about that in America.
You don't.
And even, to go right at that First Amendment point I said we were going to bookmark, it's an interesting time for the First Amendment right now. I think that's fair to say, but we still at least have a lot of it, and I hesitate to say at least there because that's not a good sign that I'm saying at least. Like, that needs to be fought for more than anything. But I don't think people comprehend the fact that you literally can't say things in other countries. You can't forget like a tweet. You can't, if you say something on the street to one asshole and there happens to be a guy with a badge walking by, you're done.
Oh yeah. I mean, you hang a poster somewhere, you're going to go to jail. Like, there was a kid a couple years ago, I forget which Asian country he was in, but he hung a poster.
North Korea.
He hung a poster. And he got, 15 years hard labor, right? And I forget the exact logistics of the situation, but I remember he came home, they got him out, and he came home, and then he died like a couple months later.
I think his name was like Oscar something. Am I right?
Worked him to death.
He died still there. They got his body back. They got his body,
right.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I think it was like 15 years of hard labor, which is, I mean, we don't even have, the agencies definitely do, but we don't even have see-through to what their hard labor looks like. But it's.
I watch a lot of, this kind of stuff intrigues me. I don't know why it intrigues me, because I think I just kind of watch these shows and I'm like, I'm lucky to be here, because we don't have to deal with those things. I mean, yeah, prison here sucks as well, but prison in a lot of these other countries, they have guns. They have they have shanks here too, but I'm like, it's normal for someone in another country to be walking around with a machete, holding it. Here, at least you got to conceal it somewhat. Mm-hmm. And to do 15 years hard labor, I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what he was doing, what they had him doing. I mean, they literally worked this man to death. So we definitely, people, like I said, need to start educating themselves on what goes on, and be quick before you are going to say, I'm going to move somewhere else. It's not going to end well for you unless you're a billionaire or a millionaire and can afford to live in one of these places, but live in the upper echelon of these places. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the means to do that, you're going to go to these other places and quickly realize, I need to get the fuck back to America, because this ain't it. And like I said, and what I tell people all the time, a lot of these other countries don't like Americans. They see what goes on in our elections. They see what goes on our social media. And I'm like, these motherfuckers are crazy. We don't want that. We don't even want that kind of stuff to infiltrate here. So, I mean,
you're talking about the governments in other places,
yeah,
specifically.
And even just the regular citizens. Like, I was talking to a friend about going to Australia. I'm like, bro, it's hard to get a trip to Australia. They don't even want nobody to come there. You know what I mean? And Australia is one of those places that they're very much to themselves. They have their own way of doing things. I mean, they have been having like concerts during COVID, like 3 months into COVID was at its peak. They were never, ever in a bad situation like the rest of the world was. They have their own way of doing things, and they kind of just stick to themselves. And when you put into perspective the kind of things that you see going on here, even in this country, I'm like when I see things on like our social media, and especially the things that are in our government, like these elections, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah. Like what is happening? Like, you see some of the things that they're getting people to vote, like in down south, you come get beer, get strippers and all that.
My God,
I'm just like, what is going on in our own country? And it just puts things into perspective. Like, you got to be aware, and you got to educate yourself. You got to really do your own research and educate yourself. You can't rely on Twitter and Instagram and even these networks like a CNN or a Fox. Screw that. They have their own agenda. They all have their own agenda, and all it is it's reality TV.
They don't have an agenda.
You know what I mean? Just all they're doing is bashing the other side.
Yeah.
When at the end of the day, both sides are full of shit. To me, you know what I mean? So people got to do your own research and come to your own conclusions about things, because, I mean, the world is a crazy ass place, bro. It's a crazy ass place, and
how many? I gotta ask you this though, because I agree with you. I think that would be an optimal world where everyone said, you know what, I'm gonna look past this headline. I'm gonna go find another source. But like, you've been podcasting for 3 years. You're an informed guy. You are interested. You're self-educated in that way, like on a daily basis. Like, you're curious. I'd like to think I'm the same way. I'm in the same kind of business. How many people are really like that, though?
Not a lot.
You know, like, and that's my question. Like, realistically, you know, people have lives and stuff. They have their priorities. Things good, things bad, depends on who the person is. And it's like, well, they have the same 24 hours in a day, and they're sleeping 6 or 7 of them as well. And how much of it is like, okay, you know what? I'm going to sit down for 2 hours now and study what's going on in Israel and Palestine. How many people really do that? Like, how many of these, you know, basic chicks on social who are putting Free Palestine in their bio? I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying, like, what do they even know about it? Probably nothing.
They know what they see on the internet.
Yeah, a headline, a tweet. You know, someone that has an opinion. Like, if you are going and getting your information from a quick tweet from Sean Hannity or Rachel Maddow, you're not getting information. You are getting a complete agenda behind whatever it is. Now, if you put them in a giant group, right, of all different opinions and ideas, and suddenly went and read all that and actually educated yourself, you could it'd be a little foggy, of course it is, but you could start to kind of be like, oh, okay, it seems like it's kind of here. Or it seems, you know what I mean? Like, there's more of the higher the number of diversity of takes on it, and then ideally, obviously, you want just news that's straight news. Here's what happened. Here's what's happening next, whatever, you know. But assuming you can't get that, the higher number and volume of, like, across the spectrum takes you can get, the better average you can create for yourself to show where the truth tends to lie.
And even with that being said, right, someone put something out there. For me, the way I look at things that are reposted on social media, I'm not going to repost something that I have no fucking clue about, right? Because how does that make me look? That's the way I kind of think about it, right? So if I see something and it's a topic that's very complicated, I'll say, I'm not going to just repost something because it's a celebrity I like or it's a TV personality that I like, and then I tend to agree because there are people that have opinions that I'm big fans of. That a lot of things that they say, I'm like, yeah, 100%. You know, my guy's always on point. We kind of see things the same way. But you have to take those things and take them deeper and look at them. I'm not going to just agree with what you said because you put it out there and you my boy. You know what I'm saying? So for me, when it's something like that, you got to do your own research and come to your own conclusions. We're all our own people, right? Come to your own conclusions. Don't just agree with what someone else said. And a lot of times I find people are always about, oh, well, the facts say this and the facts say that. I find a lot of times, and it sounds kind of crazy, that you could find facts to support any argument, right? You could find facts to support anything. I mean, you could be on different sides and one thing. You can give me facts and I can give you facts. 100%. Doesn't make either one of us right or wrong. We each have our own opinion from the research that we did, right? So just come to your own conclusions. And I would say an even bigger issue as far as that is people don't want to take the time to listen to what anybody else has to say that's on the other side, right? So, you know, me and you might have different opinions. A lot of people will say, you know what? Fuck that. He must be this type of motherfucker because he thinks that. But in reality, there's nothing wrong with agreeing to disagree or just disagreeing in general. I don't have to hate you because me and you don't agree on something. That's fine. You know what I'm saying? I know you're not a bad guy. You don't have any hate in your heart. But just because me and you don't agree on a certain topic doesn't make you a bad guy. And I feel like a lot of times, especially on Twitter, is the worst. Because, you know what I'm saying? You say something on Twitter, it goes viral. Your mentions are blown up. People telling you you're dumb, your opinion sucks.
You're incentivized to get that action.
Right. Right. And how can you tell somebody that their opinion is dumb? It's my opinion. It's how I feel. It's how I think. Right. So with the research that I did, this is the conclusion that I came up with. It's not dumb. It's dumb to you. It's not even dumb. You just don't see things the way I see them. And that's fine. But you don't have to hate me because of it. You don't have to go on social media and call me names and tell me I'm stupid and I'm uneducated and I have no clue about the real world. Bullshit. We just don't agree. And I think a lot of times people just don't want to take the time to hear what anybody else has to say. And it's and it's kind of disturbing. You know, how do we move forward as a society if me and you can't sit down and have a simple conversation about something that we might see differently? You know what I mean? Because if you go into things open-minded, you might learn something. And if you just listen, somebody might say something you think, you know what? I never thought about it that way. It's a very good point. Maybe I should take that knowledge that you just gave me. Maybe I can readjust the way I'm thinking because I got some new knowledge now. You know what I mean? And a lot of people don't want to take the time to do that because they think it's weak. And a lot of people are so obsessed with being right. Everybody wants to be right. You know, and I mean, I could go on and on for days about this because, I mean, I have trouble having a conversation with someone that's closed-minded, right? If you're just so stuck in your ways and your opinions, I can't have a conversation with you. If you're a Trump fanatic or even a Biden fanatic, how can I sit there and have a conversation with you? Because all you're going to do is tell me that this person sucks, this person's a narcissist, he's a terrorist, he's egotistical, this one's a racist, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, all that may be true, right? But let's sit here and have a conversation about it because, to be honest, I don't like either one of these motherfuckers. Yeah. So, like, I don't care about who you're more a fan of. And just because I might criticize a Trump doesn't mean that I'm pro-Biden. Because I criticize Biden doesn't make me pro-Trump. You know what I mean?
God, there's so many things, man. We're going to miss so much of what you're getting at, but like I want to go right at it. So what you're talking about is pure tribalism. It's the expectation now. Mm-hmm. You must be in a tribe, and it is usually on a given issue, whatever it is, could be something as broad as a political party or something as micro as one type of little issue. You need to be A or B. Mm-hmm. You cannot be C. You cannot be D. You can't be fucking K, right? That is such a problem because these situations, most of them, I would almost say all of them, but I'll hedge, and I'll say most of them have significant nuance. Like, if someone comes up to me and says, like you're talking about dumb opinions or whatever, if someone comes up to me and says, you know, I think Nazi Germany was a good idea. You know what? That's a dumb opinion. How many people, I hope people think that's a dumb opinion,
right?
But how many people are going to sit there and not say that's a dumb opinion, right? Most of us are going to do it. And the people that don't are going to weed themselves out because people are going to be like, well, that guy's a moron, right? And that's, with the First Amendment part of it, that's how I look at things. I want everyone to state their ideas, including people who can tell us exactly who they are, right? Because then we know, like, okay, well, I don't want to fuck with that guy.
Right.
And if you are so concerned about losing to a terrible idea like that, then you got a problem. Because if you don't think the majority, like, it's a numbers game, man. If you don't think the majority of people, a significant majority, overwhelming, isn't going to look at an opinion like that and be like, that's bullshit, then I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
And let me be hypocritical for a second on something, though, with something a little specific on that. I will say that there has been an unbelievable, and it's scary to me, rise in specifically anti-Semitism online. And it's correlated with this recent Israel-Palestine thing, and the angel side of me tries to say, like, all right, there's some people who are typing some things, they don't know what they're typing.
Oh, yeah.
But there's also the realist in me that goes, no, some people feel this way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, like you just said, people will type things out without knowing really what they're saying, right? So if you type in some like anti-Semitism stuff, don't be surprised when someone that's Jewish or something that knows, that is well informed about their culture, comes at you and tells you you're wrong. You know what I mean? So before you put anything out there, I'll keep saying it, do your research. You got to know what you're talking about. Like I just said, I'm not going to put something out there without at least feeling confident that I can have a conversation with somebody about it.
How do you, and I'll stay with the extreme examples because I've seen some, it's a little fresh in my head this week because I posted some content and I was alarmed at some of the stuff I saw on my own. And like, you know, I'm a guy on TikTok, right? Some of these accounts that are huge on TikTok, I see it in the hundreds of thousands of comments, and some of it's bots, no doubt, but like I see it and I'm like, holy shit. So I'm thinking about it more, but you shouldn't, there's certain things that for self-awareness of the worst that we're capable of as humans, you absolutely should research. I agree with you there. But there's also like certain one-off ideas to those things that it shouldn't take the research for you to know. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't take the research for you to know that you shouldn't harm another person based on how they look or where they're from.
Oh, yeah.
That shouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a good baseline expectation.
Common sense.
Yes. And so that's the battle here, because you do get, like you pointed out, people are going to respond when people say that. So what happens? The algorithm. Then, you know, it's got likes on it, it's got ratios on it, it's got comments on it. Now it's getting volume, and the algorithm, the computer is just pushing it wherever it's supposed to go. So now it starts going up towards the top. If it's a comment section, or if it's a tweet, it starts going up towards the top of the results. And then more people who may hate everything about it, hopefully they do, they're going to be coming at it, and they're drawing more and more attention to it. And then you automatically every time will get some people who just have that built-in devil's advocate in them, like, well, maybe this guy has a point. And eventually they start to then say that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and then it starts to take over their head. And that repetition is a very real thing. So I see it on this, we keep coming around like the First Amendment here, but I see it on the spectrum of where people are like, hey, if you just totally let it be wide open, you can get some people to take up questionable things. I say, though, on the other end, though, that I have enough faith in overall humanity that if that was the case and the good wasn't being shut down, so people saying, like, no, that's wrong. If that's getting shut down, we have a problem, right? You know, maybe in places like China, it could. That's a problem. But in America here, if that's not getting shut down, like the people coming in being like, yo, you're full of shit, man. That's a horrible idea. I feel pretty good about that winning over time, because people want to be agreeable, even if they do everything they can not to be. They want to be agreeable, and when they get attacked as having ridiculous beliefs and they start to see that no one else has them, they'll come back to earth.
Right.
It's when they're attacked and they see, wait, a lot of us have this belief, and why are you attacking this belief? There's nothing bad about this. You just disagree. That's a different story. Then they go farther, whatever the other direction is.
Yeah. You're right on, bro. I mean, working in the space that we work in, right, we're really putting ourselves out there to be picked apart by people that don't fucking know us, right? And that's one of the challenging things of being in this space, because somebody's always going to disagree with you, right? But like you said, you put an opinion out there like my man Moose did on Twitter. I don't know if he told you about that.
Which one? He
put a tweet out there that was disagreeing with something, and it went viral. He had a tweet that went absolutely bonkers, and his comment section was full of people telling him, "You're stupid. You don't know anything. You're uneducated." My man's is about to go to law school. Yeah, he's got to be somewhat smart. You know what I mean? And people telling him. Then people start attacking the way you look, and oh well, you know, you're a dark-skinned dude, so you automatically think da-da-da-da-da-da. You know what I mean? It's like, how can you... Don't put people into a box, which is something that also drives me crazy. Don't put all men into a box. Don't put all women into a box. Don't put all Christians into a box. Don't put Muslims into a box. Don't put anybody into a box, because everyone's different. And there's so many different variants and nuances, like you said, of every single thing. There's a bunch of Christian groups. There's a bunch of Catholic groups. You know, so, I mean... social media is a wild place, and it's hard to... We're being very vulnerable, and it's hard to be vulnerable, and it really takes... You got to have thick skin. Yes. Is what it comes down to. You got to have thick skin, because people are always going to be out there saying crazy shit to you. And just... You know what this all ties back to me, bro? Is there's so much fucking hate in this country. Like, as good as it is, as much as I love, there's so much fucking hate in this country. It's like, everywhere you look, people are just hate. I don't even know how to put it into words other than just hate. You know, I mean, you can't...
Can I say one thing to that? Mm-hmm. Just to, like, in the middle of this hedge while we're there. And, you know, if you disagree with this, no problem. But I agree. It's at an all-time high.
Oh, yeah.
In my lifetime. Never seen anything like this. And social media is very much the culprit behind it, in my opinion. But I still think people don't understand the level that hate can get to in other places. So again, this is a prime example of, like, hey, I want to fix this shit here because it is a problem and it can get out of control. It can get to where other places are. But like, there are other places that still kill people for having a different opinion or having, you know what I mean? Like, there's real shit out there. So just pointing out live right here, this is another prime example. And yet we can still sit here and say it pisses us the fuck off because it's negative for all of us.
Right. Let me give just one example about how crazy things can get in other countries if you disagree. Do you know the NBA player Enes Kanter?
Know this story well. Please tell it.
So he is from Turkey. What he did was he came out and he spoke out against the government. Big no-no.
Erdogan, right?
Yes. What they did, first of all, they said he can't come back to the country. Pretty much, if you come back, we're going to lock you up or we're going to kill you. They kidnapped his father. They kidnapped his father because of the things that he was putting out to the masses here in America. So they don't want it to look here like there's bad things going on in their own country. So, I mean, just imagine me or you saying something, right, about a political party and your mom goes missing or gets kidnapped. What the fuck? And this is one guy, one famous guy. I mean, you can't even begin to imagine. I don't even know what do you do? My father was taken by the government. He wasn't kidnapped by a cartel or by someone holding him for ransom. He was kidnapped by my homeland country's government. Dude. Imagine you saying something about Biden or Trump and somebody from the Secret Service, Trump Secret Service comes and kidnaps you. What the fuck are you going to do? How are you going to get out of that situation? So
there's no lawyer.
Nothing. What can you do? What can you do? You're at the mercy of them at that point. And it even got so bad to the point where he couldn't travel to Toronto to play a game with Toronto because they have a big Muslim community there. He was considered almost like a flight risk. We can't go because we don't know if somebody's going to try and do something to you in this other country. So think about, you're an
like
NBA player.
Kidnapped and stuff.
Kidnapped or killed, or somebody could, God forbid, bomb the bus, come to our hotel. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Imagine being an NBA player. You can't even go play in a specific city because of your beliefs and because of your opinion. It's like, it's unfathomable. So people here need to really appreciate the fact that you can go on and you can say, fuck Trump, fuck Biden, I will kill Biden. Like, say you're going to kill a government official somewhere else in another country. You might never be seen from ever again. Period.
I can't emphasize that, dude. Like, it's crazy times, it's but crazy. I can't emphasize that enough.
It's crazy.
I'm really glad you brought that up. I've never talked about Enes Kanter on this podcast, but he is, to me, it's a great symbol example because he's just one guy, but he's a guy that happens to have attention. He's been a solid player in the NBA too.
Very solid.
And credit to him for maintaining his ability to speak about this publicly. That is a very hard thing to do, and I can't imagine the weight on his shoulders knowing that his family, I believe they're still there. They still live in Turkey, and maybe it was just his dad, but I thought some of his other, like maybe his brothers too.
I'm sure. I wouldn't doubt it.
I'm not sure about that.
I wouldn't doubt it, but it was definitely his dad. And like you said, a big pat on the back to him because I can't imagine how hard that is. And it's like, it's one thing to have everybody on Twitter against you. Who gives a fuck about what you have to say on Twitter at the end of the day, right? You're never going to see any of these motherfuckers in your life. I can't imagine having an entire government against me as a person. That's like the entire Republican Party coming for Shannon Johnson. How I don't stand a fucking chance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't stand a chance. So
it's an ideology though too. It's not just like these places. Think about how many levels to government are there. You and I bitch and moan about Congress and the president all the time because that's the thing we see publicly, you know? But like, I can believe that there are a lot of great people that work in the government, but there are enough who aren't great or maybe don't realize that they're not great, who are just so caught on trying to keep the established order that they do things that they don't think about what they're doing, which is no excuse, by the way. But I'm talking about places like the agencies and stuff like that. You know, are you familiar with the Edward Snowden case at all?
No, I'm not.
That was the guy who, in 2013, he had been CIA and NSA, and he leaked to the press, to Glenn Greenwald and Laura Poitras, and there was a reporter at The Guardian, I forget his name, all the data of the Stellar Wind operation. So
yes.
Now you remember.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of his, and I've read a lot of stuff he's written. He's been on Joe Rogan a couple times too. They're great. He does a lot of interviews now, so you can go find him on YouTube, and I love listening to him. And he's controversial because he did leak, right? Like, you sign a contract when you go into the CIA, the NSA, that says, I promise no matter what happens, which is kind of crazy that this is the case. Like, we could be practically, not that they would do this, you hope. I'm using an extreme example, but we could be killing people in another country just because we want to do it, and you can't say anything.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's how far it can go. That said, this system that he exposed, that had been around since like 2002, 2003. No one was doing anything about it. And people that give me the argument, seriously, like, we're cynical and we laugh at that. I laugh at it too, right? But people give me the argument of, oh, he could have gone through the chain of command. What would have happened if he did that? Yeah, that's going to see the light. You know what's going to happen? Maybe in this country, it won't be that he's never seen again. Maybe. Hope so, right? But he'll never be heard from again.
Oh, no.
He'll never be heard from again.
Oh, no. He'll go to jail, or he'll be in prison, or, I mean, like, things like that. They'll send people to just follow you.
Something.
To just kind of scare you. I mean, and, you know, like with the Enes Kanter situation, just imagine the fear that incites in the rest of your population in your country, right?
That's the point.
You know what I mean? That's exactly why they do it. Because it's like, look at what we'll do to a guy that's brought a lot of notoriety to our country because he's in the NBA. And there's not many Turkish players in the league. So look at what we did to a guy that's brought all these eyes to our country. Look at what we did to him. What do you think we'll do to you? We'll knock you off, and it'll be nothing.
And not for nothing, but this is how these places work. You know the Khashoggi case, Jamal Khashoggi? And I think I've talked about that in one episode a while ago. But that was the reporter at the Washington Post it is confirmed, he was straight up murdered in Turkey in the Saudi Arabian embassy on the orders of Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. These countries don't give a fuck.
They don't care. No regard.
And guess what? They're still humming over there. They're still doing their thing. You know what's crazy? Khashoggi worked for the Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, right? And to
Big Jeff.
Yeah, Big Jeff. To Jeff Bezos' credit, he obviously came right out and was like, "This is crazy," and supported his widow. I think he had a fiance. So Jeff has supported her, handled all the memorials and stuff like that. But Jeff also was a victim himself when it was confirmed that MBS ordered his phone to be hacked with the whole sexting thing a couple years ago. They know about that. That was the Saudis, right? So even despite all that, and them killing a guy who works for him, when they made the documentary The Dissident this past year, which, have you seen that? Phenomenal.
Great.
Phenomenal. My guy Jim from Lifelong FBI Guy watched it, and he was just like...
incredible.
He was pacing his apartment just like, I don't even know what to say about this.
Right.
But you watch that, and I bring up Jeff because he's all about this, but he didn't put it on Amazon Prime for Prime members. He put it behind a $20 or $25 if you buy it paywall, knowing that most people wouldn't do it. I did it. I bought it straight up to watch it. But he did that because they still have a ton of business with Saudi Arabia.
Oh, man, you got to play nice in the sandbox.
Yeah. I haven't heard that one. That's good.
You got to play nice in the sandbox. I mean, the powers that be are all connected one way or another to me, right? The ones who are making the decisions of what's going on are all connected. And every now and then, somebody might need to put you in check and say, listen, don't forget who you're dealing with here. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Don't forget who you're dealing with here. And it's like on the grand scheme of things, right? We do something to the Saudis or whatever, or any other country. What y'all want to do? Y'all want to go to war? Y'all want to go to war? They're not afraid of that at all. They are not afraid of that at all.
No.
So it's like, if y'all want to go to war, we could take it there. But y'all know who y'all dealing with. Y'all know the kind of money and the kind of backdoor deals that we don't know about that they have going on with each other that is engulfed in all the powers that be. Our country, China, all the big players are the ones that are making the decisions. So you got to play nice in the sandbox. And every now and then somebody will remind you of who you're dealing with. You know what I mean? So, I mean, nobody's untouchable. Like you said, they hacked his phone. Nope. And that's just the richest man on the planet. What did he just came out? What is he making? What is he worth? $215 billion?
Whatever it is.
Nobody is untouchable.
No.
So, I mean...
It is a groupthink money talk.
Yes, it is.
Ideology.
Yes, it is.
It's not any one person. You know, Xi Jinping in China is a very bad guy. I am not naive enough, though, to think that if he left power or was taken out of power, that he wouldn't be replaced by someone pretty damn sadistic, too. You know, unfortunately, that's what... Look at Iraq. When did we get Saddam? Like 03?
Yeah, 04, yep.
You know, later ISIS happened there. Like, when there are vacuums of power... No, like, but it's real, man.
Yeah, it is.
When there's vacuums of power, that's what goes on. And, like, we are not very good at nation building. We have been very bad at it now for a long time. I'll give them credit.
That's a great point. That's a great point that you just said.
What, the nation building thing?
Yeah.
Like, I will give us some credit with post-World War II Germany, which was still a clusterfuck because it was split, you know, West Berlin and East Berlin and all that. So, say what it is. But Germany now is a major country in the European...
They're world power.
Exactly. And they don't... Look, I mean, they were fucking Adolf Hitler Nazis. And, like, that did turn around.
They still have one of, if not, I would say probably definitely a top 5 military on the planet.
Sure.
For sure.
Absolutely. And it's like, that wasn't that long ago.
No.
So,
no.
Despite the mess of the Cold War, and listen, there were still things like Operation Paperclip, which people haven't Googled that. Google that. There were still things like hiring people, ex-Nazis over in that zone to fight the fucking Soviets and stuff. There was still bullshit. There's bullshit anywhere. But I'm talking about the overall populations. That, even though it didn't go fully to plan, like that denazification thing went fairly well. You know,
as well as it could.
You know, exactly.
Right.
Because think about how crazy that ideology was and how widespread it was and everything. So, like, we did okay there. And some people are going to yell at me because they probably are going to point out a lot of things we did wrong. No doubt, I'm sure we did. But I'm saying, like, since then... Well, what did we do in Vietnam? Like, what did we do? What did we do in Iraq the first time? The 3-day war with, you know, the fucking Desert Storm. What did we do the second time? How's Afghanistan doing?
We've been trying to do that since, what, 03 Afghanistan?
That's what I'm saying. Like, we're not good at it.
Almost 20 years in. Wow.
I heard a line in a show. It was a fictional character. I don't remember what show it was. I'll think of it later. But it was somebody, you know, it was some like sadistic terrorist in the show. I think it was Homeland. That's what it was. So there was one guy in one of the seasons, but, you know, he's such this hateable character and everything. But you're still trying to understand through the show, and they were trying to get this across, how these people get to that point. And one of the things he said that really stuck with me is that America... I'm going to get the quote wrong. It was a phenomenal quote, so I need to check that after. But it was something along the lines of, America hates what it can't understand, and it doesn't seek to understand it. And that is a problem we have as a country, in the sense that we just think like, oh, you know, we're the free country. We're America. You know, we're going to go in anywhere, and people are just going to be like, you know what, that's great. Let's go with those ideals. Sure. The people that want to come to this country, that dream about the American dream, they're going to say that.
Right.
But there's a lot of people that don't. And you said that earlier, too, and that is important. Like, there's still... I didn't want to get lost in the fact that there are still a lot of fucking people who want to come here.
Oh,
like,
yeah, for sure. Don't get it wrong. Yeah.
But to your point...
To escape what they're living with now, right?
Exactly.
To escape those countries. And I want to go back to something that you just said about how people get to the point that they're at. right? Let's say an extreme terrorist for a reason. Let's use somebody in ISIS, for example. That kind of stuff is ingrained in them from birth.
Yes.
From the time they're kids, from the time they can speak, they're being taught those ideologies of, you will die in the name of this cause. You will be rewarded at the end of your journey, sort of say. So to them, that's all they know. So for us to say, you're a radical fucking terrorist, to them, I'm fucking normal. This is the life that I live. This is the life that I've been living. So for you to call me crazy, it doesn't make any sense to me, because this is what I've been doing my whole life. This is what I know. This is what I believe. This is what I eat, breathe, and sleep. Yes. And, a lot of times with these terroristic groups, these people, the scariest part to me about it in any terrorist group is when you get to the point where you're not afraid to die for something, that's where I'm like, all right, it's a little bit too much for me, because I love a lot of things. I don't know if I'm willing to die for anything that I believe in, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? Like, I believe in I'll just use Ohio State, for example. I'm not willing to die for something like that. But I'm just using that example, that thing that people love. You love your country, you love your religion. People are willing to die for it. Mm-hmm. That's how you get to that point of, how did you get there? So people don't realize that take the time to do a research on an ISIS and how it is from start to finish, how their kids are raised, how they treat their wives, how they treat their kids, how the whole culture works. That's how they get to the point that they're at. And it's a scary thing, because, there's ISIS attacks that are being planned for here right now, I'm sure. Like, we never know when anything is going to go down.
No.
And there are so many places that I look around in our country and I think, this place could get shot up right now. And there is no protection. There's no anything. I had a realization after the shooting in Vegas happened. Remember that shooting at the concert that happened in Vegas? So
yeah, I remember that one.
Like, right after that.
How sketchy was that, dude?
Right. From a fucking hotel room. Dude's walking in with cases of heavy rifles. And we went to Atlantic City in the casino. I'm just walking around like, there's no security.
Sitting ducks.
There's no protection. Everybody's got bags. People are walking around with suitcases. You don't know. You could put an AR-15 in your jeans, put a shirt over it, and you wouldn't even know. You could have clips in your pocket and a whole rifle in your pants, and nobody would know it. So it's like, there's no protection. There's no security. Like you said, we're all sitting ducks. So when I see these things like these mass shootings that happen at like these Walmarts and shit like that, I'm like, you never know. You never know when you're going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
No.
You know what I mean? So it's a scary, I'm at the point where I'm like, who wants to live in a fucking world where I have to think about before I walk into a Walmart, is somebody going to walk in here and shoot the motherfucker up? Or I got to think about it when I have kids. Or one of these kids going to just snap one day and decide that I'm going to come to school today with a gun and I'm going to just start shooting motherfuckers. Who wants to live in a world like that?
You talk about it, though, in the context of this country, and I do that too. Like, I will, and it's sad that I got to do this, but I'll walk into public places and cynically be like, well, they could just walk right through there. Yeah, we're done.
Yep.
Right? And it's sad we got to do that. The positive side of it is that the percentage of times where things like that happen is unbelievably low in this country.
Right.
Whereas, to an earlier point you made, it's not in other places.
Oh, no.
For different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But you talk about how, people have these ideologies ingrained in them as kids. I struggle with that all the time because I feel bad.
Me too.
I really do. Because a buddy of mine he was a Marine gunnery sniper, and he was one of 52-man teams. So the American sniper, Chris Kyle, he was one, right? And then there were 49 other teams, I believe. I believe it was exactly 50
I would love to
teams.
pick his brain.
But yeah, hopefully I'd love to get him on here at some point. We'll see if he does it. He's a private guy, but he was one of the other snipers. And so he covered for SEAL Team 2, 3, 6, and a bunch of SEAL teams you never heard of that we don't know about. And, he was there. He was there for Operation Iraqi Freedom, Battle of Fallujah, the whole nine. And I don't, there's some specific stories I would rather him tell because they also like kind of blend together in my mind. But I remember him walking me through just like a scenario, and I believe it like this is something he encountered, but I don't want to say that for sure. But he was walking through like something that happens in that kind of job that he did. And he's like, I'm perched up in some kind of abandoned building, I don't know, 30 feet above the ground, and in the center of a square, 250 yards away, whatever it is, there's a 9-year-old child walking out next to a young woman. And I know that there's 50 other people right there who are all innocent. And yet I know that that kid has a bomb and his hand is on a trigger. The idea that I got to take a 9-year-old's life, I don't give a fuck who you are, unless you are a sociopath. That fucks with your head. You may be trained so well that like in that moment, 50 or 1.
Right.
I got to take the 1.
Right.
You still think about that later, though. Of course you do. If you are sane, you do. And it's scary to me because you have to make, frankly, I do not want to use the word easy, but if you were just looking at it from math, you have to make an easy decision there.
You do.
50 or 1.
Like
right?
that as well.
Like that. It's still a human life, and it's still a 9-year-old kid who doesn't fucking know any better. He's been promised 72 virgins. The kid's balls haven't even dropped yet. But he's going to fucking go out there with a bomb and blow up this square in the name of, a bullshit part of the Muslim religion. It's not, these people, how many Muslims are there in the world? Like 1.5 billion or something?
It's the biggest growing religion on the planet.
Right. The number of people who agree with that kid murdering himself and other people in the name of Allah, it's not the majority, man.
Right.
There's a lot of people who are like, that's fucking horrible.
Right.
But the problem is you see these people bastardize this Quran and everything and then use it in the name of terrorist acts. But these terrorist acts, they come back to the same thing. They hijack babies with the ideology from the time they're a little seed, right? They did just the whole way. You're born into it. You're groomed that way. You believe this. You believe this. You believe this. Repetition.
Or else.
You go through puberty that way. You go through everything, and that's what you believe. And they also use it under the cover of the religion.
Right.
Because everything they're doing is based off of economic disappointment, which is fair. That part's fair. And the violence that then comes out of that, and yet they answer it with something worse on the other side, and inevitably, like all human fallacy, they want power themselves. They do this. Osama bin Laden didn't exist to let other motherfuckers be Osama bin Laden.
Oh, yeah.
He was fucking Osama bin Laden, man. I'm fucking God on earth.
Yep.
There's a story about him. Seriously, there's a story about him. I believe it's true, but when he was fighting the Soviets in like the late 80s, some kind of like grenade fell right next to him, and he looked up at the sky because it was beeping or whatever the hell it does, and it's about to go off and kill him. And he was prepared to go, and I don't know, 3, 4, 5 seconds went by, and he looked down, and then finally he picked it up, and he realized, that the hatch was out, but it was a faulty grenade. And so he took it and tossed it right over there, and it fell to the ground, nothing happened, and he, in that moment, said,
I am God.
Yes. But that's the thing. Like that type of, and he already had a lot of this ideology built in, but people will then go for that.
Oh yeah.
I see where it gets bastardized in the sense of like the power struggle as well. It doesn't change the fact that at the lower rungs of it, where you start with children, you don't feel bad about that. I feel fucking terrible about that.
It's disturbing because what the fuck does a 9-year-old kid know? All he knows is what any adults are putting into his head. He can't even make his own choices at fucking 9 years old. So you're telling him, hey, everything we've done over all this time, this is your time now. This is your time to go be with Allah or God or whoever. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this bomb and you're going to run right into that tank, or you're going to run into that crowd of people and you're going to press that button. Then after that, all that's over, your life is going to be, wherever you go next is going to be, like you said, 72 virgins. Your life is going to be filled with happiness and joy. You know what I mean? It's like,
that's what they tell them.
Right. And that's not fair to the child. We can't relate.
No.
But and it's not our culture. And at the end of the day, it's disturbing. And I just can't imagine your friend who's that sniper having to make that choice, because I'm sure in the moment he probably saw himself as a 9-year-old kid.
Oh, yeah.
If he had kids, he probably thought about the kids. And if the mother was there, I want to take a child from his mother, albeit during this terrible regime, I'm still taking a child from his mother. Any mother, like you said, if she's not insane, is going to be deeply, deeply affected by losing someone that came out of her body.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
doesn't matter what they did.
It doesn't matter.
It's a thing, man.
It's your child. I mean, you could have a son that commits murder and goes to prison. You're going to feel for him because that's your seed. That's flesh of your flesh. That's your blood. You know what I mean? So that those whole ideologies of starting the kids at that age, to me, is just very disturbing, because they're innocent children that deserve to, first off, at least be able to see their teenage years to the point where they can make their own decision.
Yes.
They don't even get to get to that point. And it's like you're almost kind of, in my opinion, brainwashing them to make them believe things that they don't even really understand. Little kids don't understand war. They don't understand, like you said, the economics of war and how power works. They don't understand none of that stuff. All they understand is, this is what my teachers, my parents, my uncles, my grandfather, because, that culture is very family oriented. This is what I know my elders have been telling me my entire life. So to him, he doesn't probably think twice about what he's doing carrying that bomb, because this is what he's been essentially preparing for.
We have such a great theme going on in this conversation where we built off, and I love how this just happens naturally, where we built off a recent news story with the very not recent, just forever war between Israel and Palestine, but then relating it to all these different, almost like puzzle pieces on the chessboard that is our world, and how it all kind of ties together from our perspective here in America to how other places work, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? But there is something to be said for the fact that so many people, when you look around at these issues, become swept up in things very, very quickly. And like, as a quick example, just off of what we were last going off of, you have something like a religious disagreement for the years where there was plenty of, attacking on both sides. Of course, there's been wars fought over this. But the ideology where like jihad really like took hold of at least a noticeable segment, whether that's 5% or 3%, it's a lot, right? That thing happened basically like after the Soviets.
Yep.
And I know some people will say it stretches earlier than that. Yes, sure. But like legitimately, where it started to become like there were people around the world who suddenly became attracted to this type of idea, like an Al-Qaeda, that happened very, very quickly. The Soviets were in there fighting in the Middle East in the late 80s, I think, mid-80s, late 80s, something like that. September 11th happened within 15 years. So things happen fast. And another thing that I've been studying, and it actually, like, I'll go down these rabbit holes, once a year, every other year, with certain things where I study some modern history and some past history, and I study the worst stuff, because a part of me wants me to always be aware of what we're capable of in all the wrong ways as humans, and also be aware of the things that beat those things and how they were stopped, if they were stopped, right? And so after the Israel-Palestine stuff happened, I had been studying some of the history there because I hadn't looked at that in a few years. And then I got into one topic that I will get to every other year pretty much heavily, and it's World War II. Because it blows my mind, not just that happened, but that it wasn't that long ago. And the level of hatred that occurred in the world at that time was unfathomable, especially when you consider the fact that things like cameras existed. It's one thing if you're talking about, like, who's the guy, Genghis Khan or whatever, 3,000 years ago. No, that guy was, I think he might have been the worst person statistically.
He's a maniac.
In human history. But that's the point. Like, we don't have video of it.
Nope.
We don't have pictures. You know what I mean? And it's so long ago that it's like, well, were we still like lower on the evolutionary spectrum then? Like, were we barely human? I don't know.
Right.
Like, whatever it is, it was horrible. Hitler happened in a time where we could see it. And the thing I went deep on this time, I started at going through the war years itself and re-looking at the Holocaust, which every time I see that, I'm just...
How?
Exactly.
How?
I look at it and I'm like, that.
And like
no
you
way.
said, it was in the 40s. to put it into even more perspective, Israel was officially named a country after World War II.
We're going to get to that.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's the 1940s we're talking about. Yeah. I mean, my grandparents were born in the 40s. You know, we have relatives that were born before that and lived through that time. It really wasn't that long ago. And it's like the same with like civil rights movement. My dad was born in 67. MLK was killed in 68. Well, you know what I mean? So like all of those things are still relatively not new, but they didn't happen that long ago.
There's still people alive who were very much in the
There are Holocaust survivors that are living. There are Nazi soldiers that worked those camps that are still living.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So when you put it in perspective, it wasn't that long ago. And, you know, like you said, how was one man in Hitler able to have one of the most powerful armies maybe in human history?
Yes, it was.
Go in and invade countries and murder 12 million people. The Jewish population in the recent years just got back to the number of Jews there was in World War II.
Yes. Think
about that. They just got back to the number that there was in World War II. It's like unfathomable that one man, well, obviously he didn't do it by himself, but was solely responsible for killing 12 million fucking people, while the rest of the world, like you said, had cameras and was able to see it going on. And how long was that going on before everyone finally stepped in and was like, all right, we got to shut this shit down?
And that's the thing, man.
You know what I mean? The power that he had during that time was, you can't even put it into words.
And how you raised the question, though, how did that happen? And when I start with the Holocaust, and that's something I fucking make sure I study, because it's just like you have to remind yourself of the worst of the worst that people could be capable of inflicting on other people. Another one I want to go study that I haven't dug deeply on, but I want to look at like the Armenian genocide as well, which occurred, I think it was roughly like 20, 30 years before that. So also like not that long ago, right? And you see what these people did to other people. And when I went down deep this time on it, I very quickly got to the question of, well, let's answer how and how fast, how quickly, like let's put some math on it and some progress on it. And I don't mean that in a good way. I mean, like, how did it progress over time to get to that? And so I really, for the first time, went very one-dimensionally deep on studying Hitler's rise. And I was curious because I'm like, you have to be able to say that he was, unfortunately, a compelling guy when he was coming up. He was not funny at all, at least anything I've studied, but he was an incredibly vivacious speaker.
He was captivating.
Yes.
And you don't get people to follow you like that unless whatever it is you're saying is reaching them deep in their soul, correct? Right? So he was, you know, I hate to give him credit for anything, obviously, but he was great at public speaking and captivating people. He got into people's minds and he touched people in some way to make them believe whatever he was spewing out.
We have to... This is so important, though, like, and this is why I was looking at it. We have to look at what worked, because you can't just say never again and then just turn your blind eye and not look at anything that happened, because then it can happen again, right? And it still could, even if you do study it, because people fucking forget, right? And not enough people study it. But that is the thing. You have to say, what did he do that worked, that got them there? Because when I talk about how fast the rise was, I always thought they had that Beer Hall Rebellion in 1923, which...
I truly don't know how he got to be as powerful as he was.
Oh, dude.
I don't know.
All right, buckle up.
Did you read Mein Kampf?
I have not been able to get myself to read that.
Okay.
I know the content of it.
Of course.
I've never read it. I know my dad had it assigned, I think, when he was in college to read it, which I've never heard of that since then. Maybe it happens other places, but I kind of wish I had a professor do that so that we could talk about it.
I had a teacher in high school when we were studying the Holocaust actually suggest that we all take it upon ourselves to read it, not be just to kind of see what the hell was going on during them, because that, as crazy as is considered one of the most influential books ever.
Yes.
You know, I mean, Hitler was on the list of the most influential people of that century, which he absolutely was.
He was.
Without question. You know, so, but I'm sorry, continue.
No. This is any color commentary along the way here. I think is good because I know what I've studied, and like there's some stuff it's a deep topic. Mm-hmm. There's a lot, you know, that I don't know from it, but I've been able to glean at least the main key takeaways from it. And you know, he did that rebellion in 23, which, you know, we talk about like living in a country and taking for granted all the things that happen. These motherfuckers went into a beer hall in I think it was in Munich, and they had just like been training some dudes like out back, but it happened to be like 30,000 dudes at that point, and they took hostage like the local government in one city, and they're like, "Yo, you're gonna be with us."
This is Hitler you're talking about.
Yeah. And so the guys were amenable, and then what happened was one of Ernst Röhm, I think, who was a general in the army in World War I, had a conversation with one of the guys they were keeping there hostage, like in the back room, and he said, "Hey, Ernst, I'm with you guys. We're gonna do this on my honor. I need to leave now, and I need to go take care of whatever." And Ernst shook his hand and said, "Cool." That guy then turned on them and like turned him in, and then they got surrounded, and they ended up getting arrested and going to jail. Now, Hitler used the court to make the news. He was fucking playing chess with everyone, unfortunately. And what he did is he made his court appearances political speeches, and they were all reported. And people were like, damn, this motherfucker has a point. And then he goes to prison for only 2 years. But when he's in prison, it was basically like, you know, he was treated very well. He had his own, you know, Rudolf Hess, who later became the deputy Führer or whatever. He was like his personal secretary in there in prison with him. And he wrote this book. And I think about it a lot because he had 4 walls around him and time to just get more and more pissed off and type away and have another guy who was a sycophant. Rudolf Hess lived to please Hitler. He was the first of his kind in that way, right? Who was just like, yes, you are a god. You are like Jesus, whatever. And so he starts getting more and more in his head. Right. And then he keeps going and going and going. So when he got out, this is what's crazy to me. He gets out in 1927. There were 2 election cycles, 28 and 32. In 1928, the Nazi Party, even with all the hoopla he was causing, and they were still like raising a fucking army, but it just blows my mind. Right. They're like something like that. It's like you and me getting a militia and being like, yeah, we're gonna get some boys over here.
Let's take over.
Yeah, exactly. And we're gonna train with guns in the backyard. Like it's fucking crazy.
Right.
But that's what they did. And in 28, I don't remember the percentage, but there was a giant house in Germany, so like our house or something in a different structure, and they won a very small percentage of it. They did not have any power. In fact, it was a letdown of an election. Then 1929 happens because Germany had been really bad after World War I because they got fucked after that. Mm-hmm. But the 20s had been so good in other countries that it had dribbled down to them. So by 1928, most people weren't starving anymore, and there was at least like a little bit of an economy. Like it wasn't great, but there was something. So they were getting more
in
like,
Germany.
Yeah, they were more like, all right, this Hitler guy, whatever. Like they were tuning them out a little bit. Mm-hmm. Then 1929 stock market crash happens. That affects everything in Germany.
I was about to say, we're approaching Great Depression.
Yeah. And so the Great Depression came there. And now Hitler said, got him. So in 1932, and this is the other part that's crazy. In 1932, the Nazis win, I believe it was 44% of the House. So they were the biggest represented party there because there was more than one party. But only 44%. They invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939. So between 1932 and 1939, either by force of repetition and getting people to come to their side, or by force of putting people in prison who disagreed, they got the country 100% publicly Nazi, right? And so I'm looking at that going, 7 fucking years. Now you look at how it happened behind the scenes. Forget the publicity of it. He had the same 6 guys, whatever it was, behind the scenes who lived to please him. They were total sycophants. So it was the Rom guy they whacked. They whacked him in 34, right? And like the Night of the Long Knives or whatever, because they started building the SS. Mm-hmm. He had the bullshit army had been called the SA, and they were like kind of like, you know, blue collar bruisers. The SS was, you know, the SS. So he's got this guy Himmler building the SS, who's like a total sycophant. He's got a guy. He had a minister of propaganda. It was called that. A minister of propaganda.
Yeah, propaganda is a huge key to all of this.
No, but they called it that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like minister of marketing, like minister of publicity. It was like, no, minister of propaganda. Mm-hmm. Joseph Goebbels, who literally called Hitler second coming of Jesus Christ, right? He had this guy, Hans Göring or whatever, who was the war hero, quote unquote, from World War I, who was like building his army. And then I'm forgetting one or two. I'll remember him. This guy Bormann came along at some point. Heydrich, who was major with Himmler and basically doing the final solution, which was ended up being the Holocaust. That was another guy who was in there. And these guys were battling each other to be his number two in command. Mm-hmm. And so they just wanted to please him so much that at some point Hitler, I don't know when it happened, but I would say it was before 1933 when he took the chancellorship, he at some point stopped hearing the word no. Or the word I disagree. Like he was put in an environment, and he was already an evil fucking guy, obviously. You add that to the fact he was put in an environment where everyone said, "What can I do, mein Führer?" Like they all called him that.
Right.
It wasn't just like, yo, like, you know, how we looking here? It was this whole fucking like he was this god among men. Mm-hmm. And then it transformed this whole country into it. And the last thing I'll fast forward to here now is right at the end of the war, which is, you know, Germany slowly lost the war, which, by the way, not for nothing, thank God Hitler was the leader once the war was underway, because in my opinion, if he just hadn't been such a fucking jackass who was impatient,
right?
You said it yourself, their army was unbelievable. Their technology was world class.
They train our military.
If they had, dude, we laugh, but it's true. Mm-hmm. If they had just waited a little bit and not started a two-front war, which, by the way, one of his guys told him not to do that, still did it. Different world. So thank God he was calling the shots and was a psycho, and he ended up being his own worst enemy. But at the end of the war in 45, you went from that power structure, let's call it 32 to 39, where it goes all in, and then 39 through 45. In 1945, when the concentration camps were found, and then whatever was left, literally, was freed, they made some of the major local populations around those places of people tour it. The soldiers, do you know about this?
No.
Bro, I want to pull this up, and I want to put it in the corner of the screen. But I think it was both the Soviets and the Americans who got to various camps. The Soviets were the first ones to get to camps. But I know when Eisenhower was taken to one of them, maybe it was like Bergen-Belsen or something like that. Mm-hmm. I want to pull it up. So he said, he saw how close the local city was. And I'm talking away from the mic if people are listening right now. Germans tour concentration camps. He saw how close these villages were, and he was like, there's no way that these people couldn't have seen the smoke
for sure.
And the stench and everything.
Smell, for sure.
And like they never did anything. It's right behind you now. But he went and collected, and you can hear the cackle in our ears. He went and look at all these people smiling. I'll put it in the corner of the screen for people to watch. He went and collected all these Germans and made them walk, the 2-3 miles to the camps. And they're just like, oh, okay, whatever. And they go and they walk in. You see, they're literally smiling. And some of that may be selective. They found a few who were laughing at something and, they're trying to market this, which I don't blame them for, by the way. They needed to do that. But now they're walking them to the camps and they make these people see the bodies. They make them see
No way.
Yeah, man. It's wild shit. And they make them witness it. And like they show them like the charred wigs and stuff. It's like almost like a sadistic museum tour. And these people are forced to look at the carnage that happened around them. And so the reason I say this is because you can see it in their eyes. They're
like, what the fuck?
They're distraught.
Yeah.
Right? Look, some people are fainting and being carried out. They're distraught about this. But yet, in this 13-year period, they got to a point where they could ignore shit like this, and only when they are then shown it, now be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And so I think about this because I look at like our system in America right now and how free,
that's disturbing,
right? But that's the thing. I look at systems like ours, and I also compare them to systems around the world, like what China's doing to the Uyghurs right now that people conveniently don't pay attention to and everything. And I'm like, it doesn't take much.
No. You get the right group behind you, you never know what could happen. You get the right group behind you that believes what you're saying. There's no limit to what you can do. I mean, there are genocides that are still going on now. You know, the one in Rwanda, that wasn't that long ago. I think that was in the 90s.
Years, man.
That was in the 90s. You know what I mean? And one of the things about the situation, and this could really be with all genocides and things that happen like that, is one of the people that was there, I was reading the book, and he was like, you know, we're sending videos and we're showing what's going on. They thought, you know, how could anybody not come help? When there was a TV man from America, a reporter that told this guy, and it's written in an interview. People are going to look at that on TV in America. They're going to say, you know what, that's really sad. Then they're going to change the channel.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
There's something about the fact that and it's a weakness we have as humans.
Yep.
Until the devil is on our doorstep,
oh, yeah.
we don't think it can happen to us, and we assume it's someone else's battle to fight and be taken care of.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Like you used the Rwanda example, which wasn't long ago.
No.
We're talking millions of people.
Millions of people.
Do you think, like, you know, a couple thousand UN soldiers are going to go over there and do shit?
What are they going to do against an armed militia?
And dude, that was
serious stuff. And even like another one in Uganda with Idi Amin.
Who was
killing his own people. And this was a president of a country. You know what I mean?
That was the Last King of Scotland movie,
The Last
right?
King of Scotland.
Forrest Whitaker.
And James McAvoy, one of my favorite movies. And I mean, but let me ask you, do you think that could ever happen here? Do you think there could, so let me ask you, do you ever think that there could be a society where martial law takes over?
My heart wants to say, absolutely not. This is America. We're the shining light on a hill. And I still would lean that way. But I don't think anything's impossible, number one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if people want to tell me magic's impossible, okay, fine. But you know what I mean, right? When it comes to groups of people, nothing is impossible. I've seen some wild shit over the last 6 years, especially. Across the spectrum, I don't need to expand upon that. And I don't think humans change when it comes to the extremes of who they can be. Meaning, I think someone could be a Mother Teresa in today's time still. I also think someone could be an Adolf Hitler in today's time still. And I don't see why, just because we have things better here, I don't see why that couldn't emanate in our country. There are a lot of fucking people. It takes one. It takes one who's got some charisma behind him. And like, some people yell at me.
Yeah, bro, facts.
Some people will yell at me because we talked about this very briefly in my last episode with Nico, maybe like 15 minutes total. But I never got to the other point. But I'd been drawing some parallels. And I was very careful how I said this, and I'll be very careful how I say this again. I am not equating the two in any way. But when I look at things that make people think things that maybe they're just thinking because they're getting caught up in the tribal moment, and they're looking at the leader that's telling them that and saying, well, that must be right. There are patterns of what Trump did charisma-wise that Hitler did.
My boy Musa said the same thing.
And I want to be very clear about that. In no way, shape, or form am I calling Trump Hitler in any way.
Right.
That's a disgraceful thing to say. He's
absolutely
not, and fuck you to people who even try to say that that's the case. And I'm not a fan of Trump, but that's ridiculous to say that. The patterns start somewhere, though, right? And the reason I said people get pissed is not just that, but I never got to the second part of the point. I didn't realize that till after, but I was saying I saw patterns on the other side as well. And the patterns I see like from the Democratic side are more where they are trying to control the narrative of what's allowed to be in play.
It's all about narratives.
Because frankly, like, let's be honest, the tech platforms are controlled by people who sympathize with the left, not the right. You know, it's just what it is. And so when I see something like QAnon banned, at the moment, selfishly, am I like, oh, thank God I don't have to hear that shit anymore? I am. But I'm also then concerned because I'm like, well, I still see Antifa doing their fucking thing over here. You know what I mean? So like if you want to play that game, if you're the public square now and you are a tech platform and you're representing that, and to be fair, they are fully allowed to do this because of Section 230. They are doing nothing wrong in that way. It's still scary though because they are the public square. If you want to do that, you better keep it balanced. And then when you keep it balanced, where do you draw the line? And that's why it goes to our earlier point, and that's why I believe everything has to be said, and you just have to destroy bad ideas.
Yeah, you do.
You know, I think the big QAnon problem happened because enough people on smaller scales were told to go fuck themselves about something that could have been true. Let's use an example. Everyone who was told that the lab hypothesis in China was racist last year. Do you know? Unfortunately, I know a couple people who went down that rabbit hole. And I'm not going to say who, but not idiots either. Not idiots. Who then went and started, they didn't realize it, but they were like empathizing with like QAnon points. Because they got caught along because they were told they were crazy. And what they were saying, we now know, is looking like it's going to be true. You know, so I see stuff like that, and that scares me because one of the other things, Hitler had that, but he also had the propaganda arm behind it.
Yes, he did.
You know, and like people say Trump had Fox News. He had one channel. All the other fucking channels hated him.
People don't realize there was no Fox News back then, so that that shit was on every corner you looked, every street you turned on, every time you turned on the people that had TVs during that time. All you saw was the swastika and Hitler. His speeches being broadcasted all over these networks during that time. You know, propaganda is a huge part of all that stuff. You know. The reason I asked you if you ever think it could happen here is because I don't know if you watched the show Handmaid's Tale.
I haven't yet. I've heard phenomenal things about that, though.
It's fucking insane.
Can you explain the plot behind that?
So, it's fucking insane, bro. I mean, pretty much, our country is ruled by martial law. So, pretty much, whatever the government says goes. Everybody has their role. You either play a role or you can put in the wall. Simple as that.
Wait, are you talking about in the show?
Yeah, in the show.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, I always ask people, do you think that could ever happen here? Because some of these things that I see on the show, I'm like, I don't know how hard it would be to make this actually happen here, right? Because you see, you know, if the militia goes to every neighborhood and says, we need every man from each household, and they're toting guns, what the fuck are we going to do? Can we stop them? Can we go to war with them? We can't as civilians go to war with our own militia. So if they come to every household and say, we're taking every man, he's going to work, every woman that's fertile is going to have children with these powerful people. I don't know if it's that far-fetched off from happening. Now, obviously, it's fucking extreme, obviously, and it would take a long time for that regime to get put in place, but I don't think it's far-fetched to think that something like that could happen because there's already regimes around the world where you see things like that going on. People can't leave their house. I mean, China had they had a limit on how many kids you can have. Remember that?
The one-child policy.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't know how far-fetched things like that are, but it's just crazy to think that there could be a society where that exists. You know what I mean?
And it does all come back to the First Amendment for me. Like people say the Second Amendment's most important because it stops tyranny. Yeah, but if you lose the First Amendment, the Second Amendment could be canceled real quick. Oh yeah. You know, so it's like everything comes back to that.
They all play off one another. The amendments.
Yes, they do. Exactly, 100%. And like, it's funny, not funny, but like you draw as you go up the board there. If someone actually, if you go and read through each amendment, they get way different as you go along. But then you can spot the patterns, like these weird little patterns across them, which is interesting to me. But side topic, there is such an issue though with the fact that, you know, we can look at these extreme examples around the world and know that all it takes is that slippery slope to be dived down and go farther and farther and farther for us to wake up one day and realize, holy fuck, we're in tyranny. And I don't like to me, it goes back to like people trying to act like it's the worst thing ever here, which goes to my point of like, no, it's not, right? Let's look at the positive and let's look at the negative and try to fix it and know how we compare in context. But the people who come out like, we live in tyranny, it's all over, whatever, I don't think we're there, like at all. I think people
Not
who say
even
that,
close.
I think people who say that have no fucking idea what tyranny is. Their theme, their theme of saying some patterns are spotted to get there. And look, we've now seen it from both sides because we've seen Trump and Biden, right? So now we've had opposite sides screaming tyranny when the other's in charge. So we can see these patterns of these people talking about this. And I think some of the themes are a little scary because they're on the edge. And it starts for me with what people are allowed to say and where they're allowed to say it. And so someone had a line where they're like, I will fucking hate everything you say, whoever you are, if you have some horrible ideas, but I will fight like hell for your right to say it. I agree with that. You know, I want to body bag you in public fairly and be like, that's a horrible idea. Here's why. Here's evidence. And hope that there are enough sane people out there to see this. And when you start to cross that chasm to where you're asking like, hey, do I think we could ever get there? Well, it starts with the chasm crossing. So it's not an impossibility. I would just like to think that there are foundations of the Constitution and the great experiment that we've set up here that can stop that from happening. What I
Do
need
you mean
to,
like our democracy?
Yes.
So, as much of a democracy as we are, I kind of feel like a lot of times we really don't have any fucking control. We have no say over anything that goes on, first of all. How much control do we as the American population truly have? Because if the powers that be come down and say, this is the way we're going to do things, this is how we're going to enforce it, and if you don't abide by these rules, these are the consequences that are going to happen. What can we, as civilians, do? If we go to a martial law type of... Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I know what you're saying. I'm trying to think about it theoretically.
Yes.
Could it happen? And what the way I start to break it down is, let's say all the top politicians, you know, people in the House, they all come down and say, you can only have, like China, you can only have one kid per household, right? And they're going to be doing checks. If they start checking and they say, you know, these are the consequences that are going to happen if you don't follow these rules, what are people going to do? Now, we as Americans are going to throw our hands up and say, this is fucking America. We could do whatever the fuck we want to do. First Amendment, you know, nobody tells us how many kids we can and can't have. But if the government comes in and starts enforcing these things that they said they were going to enforce, then what? So then that's just how you start. Then it just gets bigger, and then it gets bigger, and then it gets bigger to the point where now everybody's living under this regime just out of pure fear of the consequences and repercussions if you don't follow the rules, right? So when I watch a show like Handmaid's Tale, and that's really what's going on, because what's going on is they take all the fertile women, the ones that can have babies, and it's fucking crazy. I mean, there's a whole ceremony. It's another thing that's it's all in the name of God. It's all in the name. That's
what they do.
It's all in the name of Christianity.
Yep.
You got to live. This is all God's will. This is how God wants you to live your life, and everything. The rhetoric that they're teaching people in their training, because they have to literally go to like camps and shit to learn the rules, is all in the name of God, right? So once you take all that and put it into it, people are going to be terrified. The ones that are going to rebel are going to end up on the wall. And they're going to end up on the wall to the point where me and you are walking down the street, we could see our friends' bodies hanging in the street because they're making examples out of them. So when I think about it, I'm like, could that ever happen? I hope not, but I could see it happening if the right things were to fall in place. Because if our government would decide to go that way, who's going to stop them? Who's going to stop them? Is any other country going to come in and say, nah, y'all can't do this? Who's going to stop? We're a world power. I don't know if we're number one, but we up in the top 3 at least, or at least in the top 5. Who's going to come in and stop our country's leaders from doing whatever the fuck they want to do?
I think the cynic in me actually thinks, though, that that's already... I don't want to say it's already been happening and we've seen that it doesn't go that bad way, but this is like a good cynical point. I hope I'm right about this. I think we've seen that power structure remain the same, you know, the two sides of the same hypocrisy for so long that I don't know if it could change. And like, people were asking me, they're like, you know, they were getting on me because I didn't cast a vote for either of the candidates in the last election. And I knew by about early 2019, mid 2019, that I was not going to vote for Trump. And I was like, all right, let's see if someone's going to earn my vote. And no disrespect to Joe Biden, but he's an old, frail man. I don't know. No, I'm sorry. I don't know.
That's the truth, bro.
I don't know who's calling the shots there, right? And I'm not a fan of Kamala Harris at all.
We're on the same page.
Right. So I couldn't do that. And I'm going to be honest. That decision of mine, and this is my opinion, ages better and better every day. And it's very freeing for me, too, because I just felt like they were horrible options, and they've continued to prove that point.
The last 2 elections, I'm just want to throw my own opinion out there.
Yeah, man, 150%. But and I was a big Trumper in 2016. I was an Obama guy in 2012. I always tell people this, so I'm on the same page with them. And I was a big Trumper in 2016, and it didn't happen like overnight. Where I'm like, well, wait a second, that did not happen. It took a while. Where I was like, wait, no, that's not. Wait, that's not what I thought it was. You know what I mean? Like that thing, you have to see like 10 of them, 10 things happen. I think it took until...
I'm dealing with it now with the vote that I casted.
With Biden.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's like, I think that's perfectly fine. And like, we also put, this is a side note here, but we put people in boxes when they cast a vote in an election.
For sure.
It's like, dude, it's a binary choice. If you're going to vote, you're going to vote for one of them, right? Like in that case, if you're actually not voting third party or something like that, you know, in my case, I didn't vote for one of them. I didn't feel that way, but like I have a lot of friends who voted for Biden. I have a lot of friends who voted for Trump. I would say the minority of them was pumped about the decision, whichever direction they went, right? So what am I going to do? The people who are all like, fuck this, I'm going to judge them because they voted for Trump, or I'm going to judge them because no, like this, it's how it is. So side issue there. But point being, these powers that be have maintained this control by power-hungry manipulation for years. And like I said, I'm not a fan of Harris, but did you see her thing over, maybe it was like last week or something like that, where she talked about the migrants coming in? You did see that.
Yep.
I want to pull up. I want to pull up this video because I saw 4 years of them playing, you know, Trump in 2016 and then Trump in 2018, where he said the opposite shit. Well, it's happening again.
Oh yeah, they're fucking politicians, man. Like, I don't believe any single word that comes out of any politician's mouth ever, because their job and their sole job is to get your vote, to keep the powers, to keep the real people that are in power in power. Because at the end of the day, they're not the ones that are making the choices for anything. All these corporations that have money tied into all these things are the ones that are making all the decisions at the end of the day, period. So, I mean... We're
going to go with that, too. That's the other... We haven't said that yet.
Yeah.
But that's the 500-pound elephant in the room.
Like Alec.
I have the video behind you. I want to watch this because they do, and that's my problem with the media. They put you in a position where I'm not defending Trump, but I have to be like, come on.
Right.
You know what no one wants to be, at least
yeah.
unless you're a fan of his, no one wants to be in that position. But it's like, you have to call this shit out when you see it. So this video, it's 2 minutes long. The first, I think it's roughly half and half is, and I'll denote when it changes over. The first half is Kamala Harris speaking at some sort of like early campaign event in 2019. And the second half is her speaking the other day. And the issue is the same. She is talking about migrant families coming to this country. So
I've seen this.
I'll play that just for the people here.
We have always presented ourselves as being a nation of strength with strong arms, that when people are fleeing harm, we will embrace them. But look at what has happened with this administration. There are children who are fleeing murder capitals of the world. Let's be clear about this. Imagine
she's not wrong about that either.
Who makes a decision to pay a coyote to transport her child across the entire country of Mexico, facing unknown peril. She does that because she believes for that child to stay where they are is worse. But what does this president do? He virtually looks at those children and says, go back to where you came from. What do we have in this president? A policy that was about taking children, separating them from their parents, and calling it border security. No, that was a human rights abuse being committed by the United States government, and it is against the morals and the values of who we are as a nation.
I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come. The United States will continue to enforce our laws and secure our border. There are legal methods by which migration can and should occur. But we, as one of our priorities, will discourage illegal migration. And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back. So let's discourage our friends, our neighbors, our family members from embarking on what is otherwise an extremely dangerous journey.
There's a lot that we can unpack here.
There's a lot to unpack there, and I'm not even going at the immigration issue because that is such a fucked up, broken system. But
I have just issues just looking at these motherfuckers, man.
Yep. There's like a thing.
It's like a thing. I'm just like, you lying. I don't need. Oh my god.
Yeah.
But it's politicians, man. That's their job.
Unfortunately, it is, and I'm turning it into a positive right now because the one thing about Trump is he always talked. So like, guy contradicted himself left and right because he was always fucking talking. So you could put these tapes next to each other. These people seem to talk a little less. So there's fewer examples, at least in my estimation of it, and some of that's probably they're like, shoving it to the side. But I look at this and I go back to your point of, can it happen here? The difference, and maybe I'm totally wrong here, but the difference with this is a prime example of politicians morphing to the issue of the moment to maintain power.
Oh, yeah.
When you look at examples of places where tyranny occurs, they don't morph to the moment. They always are the moment. You look at China recently. They've been communists. They've been about that life. You look at Hitler. Hitler didn't like Jewish people in 1923. He still didn't like them in 1939. It wasn't like this, like this. In a way, it was a slow burn to where it got to, obviously, slowly injecting more and more hate. Sure. But it wasn't like one day he was opportunistically saying, hey, they're our friends. And then the next day being like, let's put them in concentration camps. These people will opportunistically go back and forth on total opposite ends to get whatever they have to get. And it goes to the overall point that people have said, and I want your thoughts on this. The political spectrum is a circle. It all comes around to each other. The right becomes the left becomes the right, and such is life. And I keep looking at it with, I mean, it's true.
You're 100% right.
I keep looking at it with issues over time, and there are things where it's like, okay, I see why that direction's going that way, and that direction's going that way, and then eventually they switch.
This is the fear. This is the fear that comes with politics, right? In your heart of hearts, you want to hope and you want to believe everything that they're saying on the campaign, right? You want to believe that everything that they're spewing out to you is, oh yeah, they're gonna be the ones that are gonna make the change. Things are gonna get better. Yada 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 yada. The whole 9 yards. In the back of your mind, if you're hip to politics in general, or even if we do a little bit of research, and you go back and you look at the history of Harris and Biden, you'll see that it's not exactly great. And I'm being nice by saying it's not exactly great, right? So this is the fear that you have when it comes to voting for it. And then you have the people on the other side that now have the opportunity to say, see?
Exactly.
Fucking told you.
Yes.
Fucking told you.
And what does that do? What does that do?
It just makes things worse.
Well,
it just makes the divide even bigger.
Now you're getting
because nobody now really nobody wants to listen to what the other one has to say. Well, you bashing me for voting for Trump. Look at what the fuck Biden and Harris are doing. They ain't doing no fucking better. So, like you said, the left becomes the right becomes the left. Nothing's changed. What's happening with the student loan debt? You know what I'm saying? What's happened with you're sitting there pouring your heart out, telling the story about a mother who's dragging her child across the plains of Mexico and everything they have to go through to get here. Then you say, don't come to the fucking border. Come on.
This is a great moment, though, to point out, like, people who don't want to see like a Trump happen again or something. Let's point out something that he did very right here that these people can't do.
Right.
He said whatever the fuck he wanted to say, and he said it like it was you and me just sitting here talking. When they say these things, I mean, you see her face.
They're being politicians.
She's like, picture a mother.
Right.
Pause for the audience reaction. Turn back to the person asking you the question for dramatic effect. That mother sent. You know what? There's just
bullshit. Bullshit. You know, and I feel like, but I feel like real recognize real. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel
what do you mean by that?
Like, I feel like a lot of people. It's not hard for me, at least, I feel like, to decipher bullshit. Right? I'll give you like a sports analogy. You have a guy on your team that's trying to be a leader. He's rah-rah, but he doesn't put the work in. He doesn't put in the extra time. He fucks around, and he sucks. That's not somebody that you're going to look at and say, you know, that's a leader that I can look up to and listen to. Real recognize real. You're not even putting in the work that I'm putting in, and I'm an underclassman. You're a senior. How can I sit there and respect what you have to say? So real recognize real. I feel like it's not hard to decipher bullshit. Right. And I just feel like and it's not even with just them, it's with almost every politician. I feel like you're reaching the masses that want to hear that shit. I don't give a fuck about what you have to say. Show me the action. You said you're going to do the student loan, that you're going to cancel it. When is that going to happen? Do it. Once you start to do things and I'm seeing you putting your words into action, now I can get behind you and support you wholeheartedly. But until you put your words into action, I don't give a fuck about your words. Mean nothing. Your words have no value to me, period. So something that we always talk about on our show, and even when this whole election was going on, is accountability. And we were talking about before this election even happened, if they don't deliver on what they said they were going to do, we are going to hold them accountable ourselves, because we already are on the fence about voting for them in the first place. So now my vote essentially helped put you in office, essentially, so you like to think, right? So now you're not doing what you said you're going to do. I'm a hypocrite by not holding you accountable, because for everything Trump said that he didn't deliver on, I held him accountable for it, and I talked about it. So I got to keep the same energy with you. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, when you see shit like that, it just makes like my skin crawl, because I'm like, all these politicians are so full of shit. They don't really give a fuck about what the regular middle class people like me and you think, because we're not the ones that are filling their fucking pockets. You know what I mean? Do you know how much money was spent on these 2 previous elections? The numbers are like outrageous.
Super
other
facts,
countries,
fucking bullshit.
Other countries don't even reach 1% of the money that was raised for these campaigns. $150 million on a campaign doesn't even make any kind of sense. When you have all this other shit that's going on in this country that money could be used for me, and I could go on a whole nother rant about that.
And that was such an issue with Trump too, because he became a part of that. He just call it what it is. I mean, I don't remember the numbers. We can look them up, but I know what you're talking about. They were astronomical numbers.
Astronomical.
And he came in, regardless of what his political beliefs were. When he came in, I mean, the guy was a true outsider. These circles of elites had always been like, oh, that fucking guy, his whole life.
How does Trump become president, bro? How does Trump become president? He's a fucking reality TV star.
Yes. Yeah.
How the fuck does this man go from The Apprentice, being on Monday Night Raw with Vince McMahon, all this other shit, to being the president of the United fucking States of America?
Because he comes in as that outsider, but he leaves as the biggest insider, just like the rest of them.
Yep.
That's my point.
Yep.
And it's not just, people like to talk about the pardons he left on the table at the end with like Assange, Snowden, and even Ross Ulbricht. Those are symbols. And I agree. Like, he should have commuted Ross, in my opinion, and then he should have pardoned the other 2 as well. And I was very disappointed, because it was a total swamp move, to use his words. But he became a part of that same hypocrisy where once you are in there, and I don't want to, there are some tidbits I've known through sources I trust. I don't want to share them on air, because it becomes a he said, she said. I'm not going to do that. I don't need to support this more than I already have enough public support with things we saw. He became such an insider that it even came back to yes, was he raising money the first time around once he got to the final 2, with him and Hillary in the election and taking people's money? He was. But this time around, that campaign started when he got into office, which is how it always works. But the money money.
Oh, yeah.
The money raised was astronomical. It was all about it becomes the game.
Yep.
Oh, we can't lose to these people.
Yep.
Therefore, I can't lose to these people. And he gets lost in it, that he loses sight of the fact that he's becoming everything that he said he wasn't going to be.
Yep.
And that was my biggest issue, because I did hear one instance, and again, I'm not going to give specifics on this, but there was an instance when he got into office where he did tell a major donor to go fuck themselves on something. And I never heard a story like that again, which is very interesting to me, because I heard that and I'm like, oh my God, he's like kind of holding to it.
Yeah.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
It became a part of him. But I don't know if people I'm sure there were all kinds of threats and shit like that. I'm a cynic. I understand what goes on back there. I'm a realist, I should say. I understand what goes on back there. But like, it just goes to show you that regardless of what his political beliefs are, one person having ideas is not going to take down a system.
Oh,
the
yeah.
system's too strong.
Too strong. I mean, you're right on, bro. I mean, with these last two elections, it's like, it's a fucking joke. Like, it's like this. We're talking about the future of our country. We're talking about the future of my children, the future of the life that me and my fiance want to have, the life that we want to live in this country. And it's like, it's almost become a fucking joke. Not even become, it is a joke, right? When you look at, like we touched on in the beginning, Fox News and CNN, they both have a fucking agenda. They both have a narrative that they're trying to push, which is just to denounce everything the other side is doing, right? At the end of the day, all these politicians to me are the fucking same. And, you know, when you see a Trump go from where he was to be able to captivate the people that he did and get the support that he did to become the president of the United States, which still to me is unfathomable, because I was watching Donald Trump as a kid on The Apprentice, cursing people the fuck out, to now being the person that's the commander-in-chief in my country.
Wild.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, when you think, I'm like, are people not realizing what's going on here? This dude doesn't have any history in politics.
Dude, I think that was part of... Dude, I 100% think that, looking back on it for myself, I think that was part of the allure. Because he was... And I said this earlier where we were talking about, like, speech styles, but he was really fucking funny, too.
And
like,
he captivated people.
Yes. Like, it was... Even when he was in office and shit was going south, I'd be lying if I told you I wasn't entertained and I shouldn't be. This shouldn't be what we look for in a president. Still entertained as fuck
get what you're saying.
almost every time he talked, unless he said something just beyond the fucking pale.
Like, he makes those faces and he talks with those words and, you know,
dude.
huge, you know, all that shit. You know what I'm saying? So
It's fucking hilarious.
yeah.
Like,
I get it.
That definitely draws people in,
For sure.
because they see their fucking uncle at the table making funny jokes that it's like, hey, he's not supposed to say that, but all right, whatever.
Fuck it, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know, yeah.
So where does it end?
Yeah, where do you draw the line? And with this last election, I mean, it was a mess with COVID and all. I mean, having the the mail-in ballots and that kind of voting and stuff, I thought was insanity. The whole voting process was insanity. I mean, that
Are you? Let me. I have to ask this. Are you comfortable with the fact, though, that it was a wide enough margin that if there was fuckery going on, Biden still won this election?
Yeah. So that's like the point that I'm getting to, right? Because we're talking about how much this divides the country even more, right? This shit right here, talking about how, whoa, you guys are holding Trump. Look at what the fuck Biden and Harris are doing, right? I thought that it was crazy how, after everything went down and the election was over, how Trump could not bring himself to admit the shit that he lost, right? Like, I even go back to the thing that should have happened on January 6th at the Capitol, right? The first thing he comes out of his mouth and says is, we won the election by a landslide. This is why these motherfuckers are going to storm the Capitol. Mm-hmm. Because you, as a person in power, got them thinking that you really won the election. So I think that what I'm saying is, when the powers that be aren't acting right, I don't know how you can expect the rest of the country to fall in line.
Yes.
Because everything, any business, anything starts at the fucking top. That sets the bar right there. So if you're acting like that, how can I expect someone underneath you to be acting, quote unquote, in the right way? You know what I mean? So, I mean, politics have really become a joke, and people don't want to hear what you have to say, and a lot of people feel like, I voted Republican my whole life, I have to stay this way, or because of who I am, I have to vote Republican. And I think that's total bullshit. I think you should be very flexible and be willing to come to your own conclusion. You're your own person. Just because you've been a Republican your whole life doesn't mean that you have to vote for Trump in a second term, because there were a lot of people and a lot of women who were just saying, you know what? I've been voting Republican my whole life. I can't get behind this for another 4 years. You know what I mean? And that's where a lot of the people that voted on the other side came from, was just based off the pure fact that they couldn't morally stand behind the things Trump said and the way he acted as a president. You know what I mean? So I think that, like I said, I have trouble when people are just boxed into one thing. Yes. If you're such a Trumper, that mean you can't have a conversation because you're not listening to what I'm saying. You're not even hearing me, because everything that I'm saying, you're just thinking of in your mind of a rebuttal to come back and say, well, Obama this or Biden that. You know what I mean? So we can't even have an open conversation about this shit. But that shit right there is a joke. These politicians are a fucking joke, man. And it's scary. It's fucking scary. Because like you said, I don't know if Joe Biden's in his right mind. I work in home care. Right? So, I work very closely with people that have mental issues.
Expert opinion.
Not even. But, I've seen a lot of people that have issues in their later years. And some of the times when you watch some of his speeches and his press conferences, like, I see his eyes. Just, he's not even in his, like, own body speaking. And then
I don't know if the lights are on.
He loses his whole train of thought. I'm like, yo, does this dude have fucking dementia?
Dude, I used to caddy for his brother-in-law a lot.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because for a few years, I worked at Wilmington Country Club, caddying up there. And what's so unbelievable to me, and this is just what happens. Like, I think something happened, first of all. But the last time I stood next to him was the summer of 2014.
You met Joe Biden?
No.
Okay,
never shook his hand.
Brother, you're saying, okay.
Never caddied, never was on his bag.
His brother, okay.
I think he nodded at me a couple times.
But you've been around him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, from closer than me and you.
Okay.
And, the fucking Secret Service
all
is
around
everywhere.
Him.
So
right.
there's no, and it's a goddamn country club. Like, there's no issues in that way. But, it's still, like, kind of weird that you're, like, I'm right next to the second most powerful person in the country. Like, kind of odd. But the summer of 2014 was the last time I was very close to him. And he walked on the practice tee. And I guess he was like 71, 72 at the time. And I remember thinking to myself, holy shit, this guy's a fucking machine. He was like yoked.
Yeah.
He was walking on there, busting balls, moving around, like whipping it. I don't know how far he hit the ball, but he was getting like probably all of maybe like 230, 240, boom, 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 boom. Like in between shots, bullshitting with people. Hey, Tom, how you doing? Like with it completely. I'm like, this motherfucker's a goddamn machine. Mm-hmm. And then I see him give his first speech 5 years later in 2019. Hasn't been in office for 3 years now. I see him give his like first campaign speech, and I'm like, this man has had 10 strokes.
It's not the same guy.
Bro, he is.
It's not the same guy, bro.
Frail, and it's like.
He is frail.
It's frightening to me because it is still a symbolic thing. And as opposite as Obama and Trump both were, we just went from two presidents who were fucking machines. They were on all the fucking time in different ways. Like Trump was loud and boisterous on, Obama was like kind of controlled on, but they were on. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've seen the picture of Obama's face over 8 years, like how much aging.
And the gray hair?
The guy was fucking on, right? And Trump, say what you want, a cocaine machine, something. Like he's on.
Yep.
This guy's off.
Yeah, he is.
He's off. And as a symbol for the country, like you look at it, you see him at the G7 meeting and stuff. Like Angela Merkel is on, man. Like she's with it. Boom. Like these other, Macron, he's on.
Even Kamala Harris, she's
on.
Quick, with it.
And I see this guy and I'm like, how much is he
ain't
really
there,
doing?
bro.
How much is he really doing? You know?
He's not there.
So when you don't know who it's like, and that's my point, you don't know who the president is, that's problematic for me. Because it is like kind of a ridiculous position in the context of modern history. This was set up when, we had 13 colonies, right? The idea that one person's in charge of all this shit is fucking crazy.
He's not really in charge.
Right. But there's a lot coming across the desk. There's a lot. It's 24-7. It's 35-7. Whatever, you know. And I think about that a lot because I'm like, well, what kind of precedent is this? You know, is he? And I pray to God he makes it 4 years.
Me too.
Because, like, dude, I never like to say based on identity we need this or we need that, but symbolically, like we do need a female president at some point here, and like I don't want it to be Harris as the first one.
I don't think it's her either.
That's problematic. Like that, you know, to me, I think it's a big issue that the first two women who were like legitimately like on the ticket or close to it or had a shot were Hillary and Kamala. It's like we could do better than that. We can do better than that.
Dog, I couldn't fathom when Hillary won the nomination for the Democratic Party.
Did she win it?
I'm just like, yo, what the fuck?
Did she win
it? She ran. She was on the ballot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, what a time. I mean, the Clintons also, even as Democrats, you know, people always want to think that, you know, the Republicans are the evil ones and the Democrats are the good side. But that's total fucking bullshit too. Look at what the Clintons did. The 3 strike laws.
I always say the way, and this is overgeneralizing it, but let me overgeneralize for a second. The way I look at it is the Republicans have themselves to blame because they just look at an issue and go, you know what, it doesn't affect us. Like, we're not going to deal with it. Fuck it. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You know, it works the same, right? No, that's not how it works. The Democrats, and I sadistically give them credit for this, they at least take the time to go pander.
Or at least talk about it.
Yeah, right? And they're full of, in my opinion, they're full of shit. So I kind of view it, the generalization is that I view the Republicans as asleep at the wheel and I view the Democrats as more corrupt. But to be fair, I view them both as corrupt. Right. I don't think you get a Mitch McConnell. You know, how many fucking years has he been in power? Like 40? He's a Republican. Yep. You don't get that without a level of just complete power, control, and corruption. Oh, yeah. Period.
And people behind you supporting you.
Yeah. So to me, it's a systemic problem.
For sure.
And, you know, one of the things you had brought up there at some point that I didn't go at because you were going on something else and I wanted to let that rip was the idea that people get pushed in the other direction. We touched it a little bit, but you hear about like these pills and stuff, you know, like the red pill, the blue pill. There's the orange pill now with Bitcoin, which is like kind of interesting.
Red pill, blue pill.
Right. Yeah. These pills, in my opinion, are not born out of great ideas that people are attracted to. They're born out of very bad ideas that people feel forced upon and say, fuck that, right? Like the thing as humans that is consistent across history is that if the fastest way to get us to not do something you want us to do is not even ask, to tell us what the fuck to do. Yeah. You know? So when these people are like, you must think like this, you must think like that. If someone's like, well, I don't know about that, and then they're told to go fuck themselves, they're going to go hard the other way. And so I see it because I see people in comment sections, especially being on Reddit, TikTok, which is fucking crazy. You know, I don't know if you read those comment sections.
TikTok is a wild place.
It's wild. Twitter, obviously, prime example. See a lot of these people, and I will sometimes go to their profiles, right? So the stereotypical ones on the left will be, you know, the pronoun people with pink hair. Stereotypical ones on the right will be the fucking don't tread on me flag people with, you know, a fucking American flag across the top, and if they're crazy, a fucking Confederate flag.
Right.
And I will go, well, it happens, right?
I saw one yesterday.
I will go look at, I will never understand that, I'm sorry. But I will go look at these profiles, and I will sometimes get lost, like trying to look and say, how? How did they get here? And like, if you go back far enough on some of them, sometimes it only takes 2 or 3 years. If you can go back far enough, and Twitter, it's hard to do because they archive it like after 3 months, so you can't really do that. But on other platforms, you can, like maybe Instagram, stuff like that. You can
scroll away to the bottom of someone's page,
and you can kind of see it. Like, there's a point where maybe you don't know what it was, but you're like, something happened. And then you look at a thing that happened publicly, and you're like, oh, maybe it was that, right? But then you also think about, who is this person? Where are they from? What issues do they care about? How did they get hit? They get hit with 1 or 2 things, And then they get so hard on that they adopt the tribe that seems to wrap their arms around them and say, we agree with you on that issue. So now what they don't realize is they get into this groupthink of agreeing with all the millions of issues on whatever left or right side that is, that now they go farther and farther and farther. And what they don't realize is they're not really going towards the great ideas. They may rip off the three broad things that they can say represents whatever party they're on now and act like they actually understand what that means. But they don't really know the issue by issue basis of what it is they're supporting.
Right.
So I feel bad for them because it's like, they think they're right or they think they're left. Maybe they're not.
Right.
And that's, to me, that's a huge problem I see. And it's what leads to this discourse because those are the people who get the clicks and attention on social.
Those are, like you said, that groupthink, that shit bothers me the same way it bothers you, bro. It's like people want to be accepted also. People want to feel like they're a part of something. You know what I mean? So, you have these crazy ideologies, not even crazy ideologies, just you feel a certain way about something and you got a bunch of people that back you. That makes you feel good. So like you said, you could take it to the extreme now because those people are probably going to think the same way you think because everyone wants so badly to be accepted. And that's not even, that's with everything. You see it all over Instagram. You see it all over Twitter. I feel like a lot of times people don't even know who they are themselves anymore because they're trying so hard to be accepted or to fit the stigma of what they think they should be instead of being them true selves, which in the end, at the end of the day, all that is going to lead to you hating yourself even more than you already do. And your insecurities are just going to eat at you more and more and more and more and more. Right? So, I mean, that groupthink shit, it's a huge problem to me. People don't want to think for themselves, bro. Why? People are so thirsty to just be accepted, and feel like they can't be themselves. Now, we have a group of friends, 6 of us. We all have different opinions on shit. I don't give a fuck if what Miles thinks. Not that I don't give a fuck, but he says what he thinks and I say how I feel. I don't have to agree with him to know that if I call Mills and be like, yo, Mills, my car broke down, can you come pick me up? He'll be there in a heartbeat. So I don't feel the need for everyone to accept my opinion because not everybody will anyway. You know what I mean? So the groupthink shit it's a major problem.
When we were growing up, before social media was the end all be all, when we were kids, maybe like 2009, 2010, stuff like that, before it really, really got there, right, on the scale, we didn't have this stuff.
No, we didn't, bro. We didn't.
And guess what? People, even if it wasn't loud back then, people still had all different beliefs on shit. You could be in a friend group where there were 2 hard pro-lifers and 2 hard pro-choicers, right? And maybe the rest didn't care that much or that wasn't their issue, right? And no one fucking cared. And now I see it with kids I talk to, in high school or in college, and like their friend groups don't happen because people think a certain way. And I'm just like, how fucking sad is that? Yep. And then I look at my own and what I notice is that the people I know who are hard on either side, they're different friend groups for me, which is so interesting. And I guess I'm kind of lucky to be in the middle of it, and I'll still go at both of them,
right?
Like with certain things, but they at least know I'm quote unquote not the enemy,
Right.
And that I never thought of it that way until maybe a couple months ago, but that's even sad on my end. And that, to me, is a very, very piss-poor precedent because you've talked several times today about the fact that this whole disagreement point, it's good to disagree on stuff. It shouldn't be an end-all, be-all, and you should be able to say, you know what? You have your evidence, I have mine.
I learned something new.
Right. And I think we're setting up these little mini cells of people throughout society that are losing that ability because they don't hang out with people who don't agree with them because they know that they don't agree with them because they can scroll through their goddamn social feed.
Like you said, there was a time where none of that shit was ever relevant, right? I remember there being a time when I was a teenager and in high school where it was disrespectful to ask somebody who they voted for. It was disrespectful to ask somebody which political party do you affiliate with. It was disrespectful. It was something that was never ever talked about ever. You don't speak about that kind of stuff, right? Now we're at the point where it's like which side are you on? Because I'm going to put you in a box and tell you what kind of person you are based on who you fucking voted for. You know what I mean? Like, how twisted
100%.
is that shit? How twisted is it? Because I might not agree with a certain candidate's points, but certain things in this party appeal to my beliefs more. That's totally fine.
That's fine.
That's totally
and you
fine.
say it like that.
It's fine. You know what I'm saying?
They appeal to my beliefs more.
Exactly. And that's really what it is to me, right? That's really what it is. But it's really gotten to a point where it's like, you voted for Trump, you're a racist bigot. You voted for you vote for the Democrats, you're a tree hugger and you're kumbaya. Bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the point that we're at in society. And it's frustrating because it's hard. You see it everywhere. You know what I mean? People often assume just because you're black that you voted for the Democratic Party. And that's not true in all situations, because I know plenty of black folks that voted Republican for Trump both terms.
And what can I ask you about that specifically?
Sure.
Why is that so ostracized? I mean, they really and I'm not just talking about within the black community. It's what's way more alarming to me. Not that it's okay anywhere, but like if it's within your own community and people are going at each other or whatever. Maybe there's an element of that can end up being healthy, even though I think that example's not. Where I draw the line is when I see Chelsea Handler getting, and I'm cherry picking one example, but this is a pattern. Mm-hmm. When I see Chelsea Handler getting on TV and telling her old ex-boyfriend, 50 Cent, you're black, you can't support Trump.
Yeah.
That's where I start to go,
Yeah.
Okay, I don't like to just label stuff racist right away. I think we've hurt that word because we overuse the fuck out of it. But I look at that and I think about it. I count to 10 and I go, is that racist? I think so.
Mm-hmm. I'll even give you another example when Biden said on Breakfast Club, you ain't black if you ain't voting for me. How the fuck do you even form your fucking mouth to open your mouth and say some shit like that?
Shout out to Charlemagne the God
you know
for
what I mean?
keeping a straight face.
You know what I'm saying? How the fuck do you even form your lips to say that shit? And it's like, so to what you're saying, right? Because it is ostracized. Because if you're a black person that lets it be known that you voted Republican, you're going to be called an Uncle Tom. You're going to be called a traitor. You ain't black. You don't care about us. Blase, 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 blah, right? What I think is, and I'll go back to this. This is what we've been saying from the beginning of this episode. People need to do their own research. Go look at what Kamala Harris was doing in California.
Tell people what she was doing.
I mean, locking black people up for weed charges everywhere, left and right. Go look at Joe Biden's history of what he was doing when he was starting in politics.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Specifically?
Sure.
Real quick. He was a co-author of the 94 crime bill, which I think we can all agree was a horrible bill.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay over time for people's beliefs to change and to be able to say, yo, I did get that wrong?
It's okay to get it wrong if you can admit and if you can fix it, then yes.
Okay,
If
I
you
like
can,
that answer.
If you can help rectify what you did wrong, then yes, it's okay. But if you just say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I got that wrong, and you just leave it at that, words, again, don't mean shit. You need to put into action, which say, okay, you did wrong. How are you going to fix it? Fix it. You're somebody that's in power to be able to at least try and fix it or have something to do with something. Do something about it. That's what you have to do. It's all about accountability. Okay, the first step was you saying, I fucked that up. That's the first step. How do we build on that now? Because it doesn't just stop with I fucked up. You know? You gotta rectify that as much as you can. So I would say to a lot of people, do your research on these candidates because they all got fucked up pasts. You could very much sit here and call Joe Biden a racist and a bigot just as much as you want to say it to Trump. You know what I mean? And you can do the same with Kamala Harris against her own fucking people. So people have every right to make their own choice about who they want to vote for, right? Because I feel like a lot of people that vote Republican, I don't even know how to phrase this right? We're in a capitalistic country, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to make their money and capitalize on making even more money. The rich get richer, as they say. For a lot of people, the Republican side appeals to that more because they're like, you know what? They think, I did what I had to do to get here. Period. And I want to stay here. I don't want to be having to pay this and that coming out of my checks to pay for people that are sitting on welfare that don't want to work hard. Period.
Nah, that's interesting. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
You just introduced two ideas, I think. And maybe I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. So if I'm wrong, correct me. But this goes right at the whole like circle of life thing I'm talking about because historically, at least when I was growing up and everything, 100% correct. Mm-hmm. And I disagree with that notion. I also disagree with the opposite notion that says, you know, everyone has to, like, let's use the extreme example, socialism, right? Like, don't think that's a good idea. And I could say, and I do say this on this show, capitalism has a lot of flaws. It's got a lot of things that leave me up at night because it fucks over people. It's still a lot better than that alternative. And cynically, I think there are parts of capitalism that will never be perfected, unfortunately. That is, I don't like saying that, but that's
what it is.
It's human nature, right? But that whole circle of life has shifted in a way to where the opposites have now remained opposites and they're starting to come around. Because what I've seen now, and maybe it was just like Trump and now it'll shift back. I don't know. But who was Trump appealing to more than anyone? He was appealing to pissed off people from the lower middle class or upper lower class who had been left behind in this country who couldn't stand those goddamn bankers in New York, right? Mm-hmm. Like he was appealing to more of the common man who then went and was paying the Democratic Party hand over fist to take him out. The powerful people in fucking New York with all the money, right? Yep. So it's like this still, it's so weird that happened because I think both are wrong.
Yeah.
But the people I knew who were like lifelong Republicans who held their nose voting for Trump or just didn't vote were people who more appealed to the whole like, you know, I appreciate the fact that there can be just total winners in society.
Right.
And, you know, we need to have fully
dog
free
eat
market.
dog.
Right. And so it's just so weird to me because now we have so few principled people with that. Right. So my grandfather, lifelong Republican, can't understand for the life of him how someone votes Democrat. Right. But he has principles. He was in the Army. There's certain things about the country that he's always about. And one of the things that is pissing him off right now is how people are treating Biden. He's like, that is, whether you like him or not, and I am not a fan, that is the commander-in-chief.
For sure.
And they are doing the same things to him that they did to Trump that I yelled at. And I appreciate, this is a lifelong, I promise you, has never voted for a Democrat a day in his life. I would stake my reputation to that. But he's an outlier. There are very few people who say that. And yet I point that out as somebody who's, he's 85 years old. How many times has the Republican Party shifted beliefs that he's gone along with in his life?
Right.
Probably a lot. And yet there's still some sort of principle there. The problem is most of the people who are part of this shifting cyclone, they don't have principles like that.
I love that you said that the thing about principles because it's true. Because they're, above all else, there should be a respect for our commander-in-chief, no matter who it is, right? I think what a lot of people struggle with is when somebody like Trump, I would say, who would say things that would offend people.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So people think to themselves, well, how can I respect somebody that says shit like that? If he wasn't the president, I wouldn't respect him. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I think there's a very fine line, but I also am not going to go on Twitter or a platform and say, fuck Trump, I hope he fucking dies, like a lot of people do. I would never take it that far, but there should always be a respect for the powers that be, so to say. You know what I mean? But
I think the respect is in rooting for them to do good.
Right. And that's all anybody should want, period. Because we're all living in the same fucking country. Yeah. Why shouldn't we all just want it to be the best that it can be? I don't care what you believe in. I don't care what you believe in. How can we make this better for all of us? Is what it should come down to no matter what. People get too caught up in this side and that side, my belief, you're wrong, I'm right. No, you're wrong, I'm right. Your opinion doesn't matter, mine does. People get too caught up in the fact of we're all Americans. We're all Americans. I want our country to be the best that it could be, period. I don't give a fuck who's in office. I don't. Republican or Democrat, I want our country to be ran to its best abilities. Period. That's all it ever comes down to for me, and that's all it should ever come down to.
I couldn't help but think of this example with you going through that. The Biden administration did something a couple weeks ago that was fucking awesome. It was, and I'm going to gloss over some of the fine details on this, but they restricted investments starting in August to 59 Chinese companies that are directly tied to the Communist Party / the military itself, which China's a huge issue for me, and I always say this very clearly because we need to, because it's concerning to me, but I separate that heavily between my issue is with their government. It is not with their people who are oppressed by it. If there are people who have been brainwashed and fully support that government and actually do, then fuck them. But there's fucking 2 billion people in that country, and there's a lot of great people who are forced to live under this regime. Correct. So I do not want to get lost in, fuck China, man. I'm saying directly fuck the Chinese Communist People's Party, right? The Biden's administration restricted in, I think it was 59 companies. I'll put that link somewhere so people can see that. And I was like, well, fuck yeah. That's what I'm fucking talking about, people. And yet some of the same people I know who are like huge Trumpers who can't stand China, the government and what they're doing. I'm like, yo, this is good news. And they're giving me all the reasons why it's not. And I'm like, we can't win.
You can't.
We can't win.
You can't. See, that's the fucking problem, bro. Nobody once they hear it from the other side, period. And it's like, that's not a good space for us to be in, because how the fuck are we ever going to be able to come to agree on anything outside of politics? How can we agree on anything if we can't even have a simple conversation about that and see the good in it? Because we don't want smoke with China, man. You know what I mean? Period. They got, like you said, 2 billion fucking people. They outnumber us like a motherfucker. And again, that's one of those top 3 militaries on the planet Earth. We don't want smoke with them.
They own everyone, too.
They own everything. You know what I mean? So people just got to listen, bro.
We talk about like freedom here. There, some of the restrictions that happened during COVID in Europe were insanity compared to here.
What?
And
we could never.
No.
This country could never. No fucking never. Discipline.
Right?
No fucking discipline.
And I had an issue with some of the over-the-top shit we did here, no doubt about it. And I don't want to ignore that, right? Again, goes right back to I can try to improve something I view as wrong, but also recognize that, like, we had it better. When I had Nico on here, he talked about what happened in Greece. In Greece, they had to text the government to leave their home. My friend, his cousin Achilles, left his apartment that he lives in with his fiance to walk their dog and got a 300 euro fine because he didn't text the government.
Right.
And I bring this up because a lot of people don't know this, but like the Greek ports are owned by China. And that's and again, this is not full causation. I'm pointing out suspicious things. I'm not putting full facts behind this and then saying it's the Chinese that implemented that policy. What I do and said, like, you have to control your people like this. What I do see is patterns in a lot of these countries, and it makes you ask questions, because that Communist Party, let's give them the credit where it's due. I hate doing it, but they are technologically innovative, and they are 12 moves ahead on the chessboard.
Way ahead of us in all aspects. I mean, we're not even in the same realm as they are. They are light years ahead of us. Light years.
And that's where I get a little concerned, though, with the power struggle we were talking about in this country, because it's not nearly as bad. But we've had our own problems that are now dividing us from within. Mm-hmm. And I think everything...
It's a great way to put it.
Dude, I think everything goes back to money in life. It just it's the most important thing there is, because, like, you and I would probably agree our family's health and our health is, like, the most important thing to us. What funds that?
Government.
But sad you got to say that, but yes, because the government controls the money, and what funds it? The fucking money.
Yep.
Right? And to your point, yes, now the government's subsidizing a lot of that, which is a whole separate issue. Yep. And I'm not going to pretend to have an answer to healthcare. I've never seen a good solution. I've never seen a good solution. But you see that, and it's like, okay, how do we get there? And then why are a lot of the same things with the money, like the wealth gap from the 80s? I talked with Moose about this. We really hit a stride on this. But you've seen it move like this. And for people listening and not watching, my hands are moving directly apart in like a sideward V shape. It's happened like that consistently since the 80s. Dr. Steven Pinker has written about this extensively. A lot of other people have written about it. It's true. And so what I see is that quote-unquote winner-take-all, bad part of capitalism, winning out, and it's pissing off the other 99. But who are the people on both parties who are enabling that to continue to happen?
Oh, yeah.
The people in government. And what's the one, because they're not, most of them aren't billionaires and stuff, right? They're not, but they're swimming in it. Nancy Pelosi's got a lot of money. Mitch McConnell's got a lot of money.
They all got bread.
Right. And it's a power thing. They're more powerful than their net worth actually appeals. So that's their like competition. And they stay there. How do they stay there? How do they keep those same two ideologies in power? They convince, and I'm not the one to come up with this. Smarter people have come up with this. So I'm not going to take credit for it. But they convince the other 99% of us that we hate each other on the most visceral of things.
Oh, yeah. About everything.
It's like they take their finger, they put it right in the vein. They like race as an issue. So like we look at the problems we have with the police in this country. There are problems there, but they take their finger and they stick it all the way deep into it to make it seem like it's apartheid South Africa. It is not.
Right.
So again, like I want to look
Right.
I want to look to improve that, but like I also don't want to be like, well, we're not the most racist country in the world. Like we need to say that. I want to be able to say both things, and these people put it to where if you don't say one of those two things, like either we have no problem or we have the biggest problem in the world, we hate each other.
There's no in between.
By design is my point.
Yeah, for sure. I never thought about it like that. That's a good point.
I saw a perfect tweet. He's kind of crazy, but he's all over the place. This guy on Twitter, Hotep Jesus, he said it the best I had seen it said. I'm sure someone else said it before him too. But he said it like that. I won't do it justice. But it was, the 1% have convinced the 99% to divide and hate each other, such that they can continue to deflect from the real problem, which is them. Yeah. And it's like, well, how do you get an ideology to stay in power for 300 years? Two of them. Well, that's probably how.
Yeah, bro. The divide in this country is so. It could be very exhausting. It could be very demeaning sometimes because it's so much all around you. Like I told you, I had an event I had to go to yesterday. I'm driving, and there's a Confederate flag that I see. I'm like, yo, like automatically, like now I'm automatically like now I'm uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
You should be.
Like now I'm uncomfortable because I never been here before. Now I'm uncomfortable, and it's like. I wish we didn't have to walk around seeing and feeling shit like that. You know what I mean? But like you said, the powers that be are going to be the ones that are going to continue to drive this because it's going to keep them in power, and that's 100% fact. What a world!
I said this earlier, but to go right at it, I will never understand that. I'm sorry.
Like the Confederate flag?
I just will not. There is no part of me that can understand the decision of someone to be like, I think I'm going to buy a Confederate flag.
And that was right outside Philly, which made it even more bizarre.
Oh, bro, yeah. There's fucking one like around the corner.
I know where I'm at.
Yeah. And it's like, that is in no way reflective of the people. This is a regular South Jersey town at all, But like, I think about that and I'm like, when did that become a good idea for them? Like, what are they trying to say with that?
What does that represent for you?
Maybe it doesn't represent the worst things, but from a common fucking sense scenario.
Exactly.
What do you think is going to happen when you put that out?
Right.
I can't, there is no part of me that can say, there could be no. Like, I just don't, there should be very simple things in this country. Like, it's a crime in Germany to, and this is probably a great thing, to be honest, for people to question the Holocaust or something like that. And people say it's a slippery slope with the First Amendment or whatever.
It never happened, which blows my mind.
It blows my mind, right? There's fucking video. You can see it. But
right.
It's like, that's probably a good thing. And like then I view it pretty similarly here with that. And I know it's a slippery slope, and some people yell at me who totally disagree with that, but they'll say, like, look, if they did it for that, what else could they do it for? But, like, there's certain things, like, in history that it's like, I think we can all agree that that wasn't good. So to me, it's just like when I see that, I'm like, if that person's not a hateful individual, which there's a probably 50-50 chance at least that they are, then they're just an asshole.
Right. And insensitive. Like, if I see something like that, how can I not? When you see that flag, it's a representation of hate and rebellion, right? So when I see that flag specifically, I'm not talking about like a Blue Lives Matter flag where I think you hate all black people, because that's not always the case.
I think that's more of I disagree with it, but it's more of a reaction.
Yeah, it's not really it's not the same as a Confederate flag where I'm just like, you must be a hardcore fucking racist.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how I cannot feel about that because of what that flag represents and the time that it was established and what it was used for. You know what I mean? So when I see something like that, how can I not be like, I need to watch my back where I'm at. Like I need to I need to be careful about where I park. I'm like, this is some shit. Like I don't want to be feeling like this on a fucking Friday night. I'm trying to be at this event and representing. You know what I mean? I can't. Now I'm like, is the person, you never know, is the person who, are they here at the event that I'm at? You know what I mean?
What
like
are they capable of?
Yeah, like you just go through all these things like, oh, I need to leave before it gets too late because I don't want to be walking around here. You know, I mean, like, I literally hate where my mind will take me in a situation like that. Like, I don't want to be a black kid walking around this neighborhood at nighttime because, God forbid, that person looks out the window and thinks I'm a fucking thug or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, your mind takes you to all these fucking places, and it's like, I don't want to be fucking feeling like that.
And you don't, by the way, and this is important to say, and I would say the same thing. I don't think I had to say this in the context of our conversations, just where they went when I had them on, but with Miles and Moose, same vibe. There isn't a thing that it's like you're on the lookout for it all the time. And you're like you are looking for, where can I find to be offended? No. There's a level of things where you see it like, oh, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
And now you have to think about it. And that is the important fine line, because these are the things that when I say, like, the people who try to say, like, there's no problem. Well, no. You can't say that when you have evidence of things where, I'm talking to a black guy who's like, yo, I saw this thing. This just happened in fucking South Jersey somewhere on a regular road. And, like, yeah, my mind does go to those places.
Yeah, it does.
And it should. Because you don't know. It's like, why are people more afraid when they go out at night versus when they go out during the day? Because during the day, there's light. There's an ability to witness things. During the night, there's fucking darkness, right? It's the same psychology with things. It's like, why do you not feel that way when you're next to somebody putting up, I don't know, the flag of the country where they're from?
Right.
Versus a fucking Confederate flag. And I remember, this is one of those childhood memories etched in my brain. I remember we used to get these little pamphlets. I don't remember what the thing was, but it was in like 4th, 5th grade, something like that. And it was like some sort of National Geographic Junior or something. We had to read it for social studies. And I remember seeing a little article that was, the precursor to social media. You'd see a little article in this pamphlet. And it was about this girl who designed by hand a dress to go to her high school prom in the South. That was a Confederate flag. And I remember seeing that and being like, wait, wasn't that like because we learned all about that. Wasn't that like the fucking flag of the people that lost? Like the people that were enslaving people? And then I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, she goes to a school with white and black people. I'm like, and I'm seeing her defend it as, this is my family's history.
Tone deaf.
And that's my thing. I'm like, and I'm sorry to just totally compare it, but I'm not, because I don't view it very differently at all. But you look at it, it's like, do you see people in Germany wearing like the Nazi SS suit?
And swastikas and
right.
shit.
Yeah, like, is it any different? And look, I don't want to be like people on two sides. Like, we're comparing what's worse. Let's totally just call it what it is. This history of slavery and the history of the Holocaust, for different reasons and different actions that were taken upon it, were black eyes, no pun intended there, on history completely. So, like, when I view it at a high level, I look at it like, why would you ever fucking try to
defend?
Not even just defend it. Why would you ever even try to, like, start the conversation of revisiting that history?
So, like, when I see something like that flag, that's all I can think about. Slavery, what black people had to go through, and what that flag stood for, right? And like you said, that you talked to Moose and Mills about, like, I don't walk around looking for things to offend me, right? I was having a regular ass Friday. I'm driving to where I gotta be. I just happen to look over and I see a Confederate flag. Immediately, I'm like, you know, my mind starts going, where the fuck am I? I gotta make sure I'm out of here by this time before it gets too dark, because like I said, I don't want somebody that's white to see me walking around as a black man, and that's all they see is a black man, not a kid that wouldn't hurt a fucking fly. You know, they see a black kid walking around their neighborhood. I get the cops called on me for no fucking reason. Now I'm agitated because I got the cops called on me. Now I'm giving them fucking attitude, even though I'm trying not to. Like, there's a whole chain of events that happen, you know, because of that. So, I mean, when you see things like that, I don't know how there's a way for your mind not to go those places, and it really sucks.
It does.
Because none of us want to be feeling like that, man. Like, I'm from Philadelphia. That's my fucking hometown. I don't want to be walking around my city or the outskirts and have to feel like I got to be watching up my back. Oh, I can't stay too long. I got to leave. That's bullshit.
Stupid.
You know what I mean? I'm an American just like you fucking are.
I don't understand how, like, there's still an ability to, I guess, have these types of beliefs and problems when we have full instantaneous access to at least see a highlight of somewhere else in the world. You know, like, I can pick out a random country that has 10 fucking people in it right now in your brain, whatever it is. South America, Asia, Africa, wherever, one of the small ones up in the corner of Europe. Okay. If I wanted to go see what, at least a little snippet of what life is like there, YouTube, Google.
Yep.
I can see it.
Yep.
I can see that. I can read fucking science on shit. I can read information that's been backed, right? But people still want, it's like they're always looking for a boogeyman.
Yep.
And somehow the boogeyman always comes back, and it's not just a white black thing. I'm talking about everything. It somehow comes back to people who have a different origin, quote unquote, than they do, which, by the way, we all have the same fucking origin, but that's neither here nor there. Right? I'm saying, like, in more recent history, a different origin and a different way of looking at it. Could be religion, could be race, could be something. And they have to be able to say, oh, my life is fucked up because it's their fault.
Right.
I don't get it.
Right.
And it comes up, like, this is a conversation that happens a lot on this show, and it happens when I'm talking with a white guy, and it happens when I'm talking with a black guy too. You know, and it's like, to me, I guess that's like the healthy part of doing this, because we actually do talk about it and say, well, why the fuck do we see this stuff? But there aren't enough people asking those questions, because the people who are on the issues are extreme on one side or the other, and they either celebrate it or say, like, there's nothing to fucking worry about, or they say, you know, they scream fuck you, which in that case, obviously, I'm more on that side. But, like, I do want to know what gets somebody to the point where they start thinking those things. I am very curious about that. I want to, same way we were talking about the kid with the bomb earlier, how does that happen? I want to know, so that the kid that comes after him doesn't, if there's something I could do to help it, they don't have that happen. Right.
I mean, what do we do about that, man? I mean, so like the thing with the kid with the bomb, right? Would you say that it's the same here?
How so?
Not with the bombing per se, but let's say people that are racist that have kids that will raise their kids to be, because kids don't know what fucking hate is.
100%. I think
so you think that happens here as well?
Yes.
You think that's a big issue?
I think there's more hope for kids here, because there's freedom for them to decide things, go find things for themselves on their phones and stuff.
They're much more available to see other things now than we were, because there's 5-year-olds that have fucking iPhones.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. So I think there are kids who can absolutely beat the odds and come up in a different way than their parents did. Even if their parents are trying to beat it in, I think it makes it a lot harder.
Right.
But yeah, unfortunately, I think it's just science. I think there's kids that get lost to that environment. They don't know anything else.
They don't.
And then it's, from the time they're 5 years old on, it's confirmation bias.
Yeah.
To what, there are still people in this world that try to say that, like, different races have different levels of intellectual ability. We still have people perpetuating that type of stuff. Yep. You know, like, are there stereotypes? No, seriously though. Like, go to Google.
Yeah, you're right.
You will find dissertations from people describing, like, well, the size of this whatever the fuck in the brain. And it's like, dude, there may be stereotypes that exist of all our different races. I can think of 10 right now in my head of my own, but it's like, when it comes to human being versus human being, it's all the same shit.
We have the same makeup. We have the same capabilities. Some people are just a little bit more blessed than others. Some people just are just born with certain shit, like your man right there, Elon Musk, that's hanging on the wall.
Yeah, well, exactly.
He's somebody that said in his Joe Rogan interview, he's so fucking intelligent, right? He's like, just imagine never being able to turn your brain off.
Yes.
And it's constantly going and going and going. And I'm thinking of this 20 years down the line. And like, that's what makes, when people say, oh, he lost his fucking mind. No, he didn't lose his mind. His mind just hasn't stopped yet. It's like the same thing with Kanye West, like creatives like that. They're just wired.
Yes.
They're wired differently. You know what I mean?
Do you like Kanye?
I'm a Kanye fan. I mean,
I think he's crazy.
He is,
but
crazy.
I think he's a genius.
He is a genius, and that's what I'm saying. But he's of that creative mindset where it's like, sometimes it seems like sometimes his thoughts and ideas are so far ahead of everyone else's, and just things that people haven't thought about. And the way he goes about it makes people kind of uncomfortable, or they don't really understand it because they're not wired like him, and he can't understand why we are, because we're not wired the same way as like creatives, like artists. Yes. And tattoo artists and artists that do like painting and stuff like that. They're just people that are just wired different. Someone like that who's just a genius, a genius engineer of a person that is just like, you can't imagine to put yourself in their shoes. You know, I wouldn't want to be an Elon Musk. I don't want to have it to a point where my brain literally is always just trying to figure shit out. I like the fact that I can go home and lay in bed at night, relax, and put my mind at ease and go to sleep. That doesn't exist for people like that. You know what I mean?
There was another example from Joe Rogan a couple years ago. He's had on Neil deGrasse Tyson a few times. He just had him on recently. I got to listen to maybe like 20 minutes of it, but I haven't really listened to it. But the last time he was on before that, Tyson got a lot of shit because he was interrupting Joe the entire time. But I really, really appreciated that episode because he wasn't trying to. This is what people don't get. Mm-hmm. He is, you want to talk about one of the smartest people in the world, he's another example like that. In a different parallel, you know, he's interested in some other things than Elon is, but like Joe would say some things that are smart or like good questions or whatever, and his mind is, you can see it. Watch the tape. It's working so fast. He's not trying to cut off Joe and be like, Joe, hold up. No, it can't be that. Like, he's not trying to do that. But in his head, he's like, oh, this man can't see it. Hold on, let me make him see it.
Right.
And like, I love that. I like, it's genius.
It is genius.
And so when I heard that one, I actually, even though like some of it's cringy because he's like coming all like just going right at him, like no, hold up, Joe, like the entire time. Then I listen to what he's saying and I'm like, oh my God, like he's 14 steps ahead.
Yeah, his answer, he already had the answers before Joe even finished what he was saying. Yeah. Dude, some dudes are just miles ahead. That's just God-given ability, man. And it's not even people like that. It's like him, people like MJ or Kobe or LeBron or athletes or like Ronaldo, who just, God just gave them an ability that not everyone on the planet has. Those guys like that, one of one. One of one. You know, you'll never see anybody like that. So those people like that are always the most fascinating because they're not your everyday people. They're prodigies. Yes. You know what I mean?
There's a thing.
You're something different.
There's a thing.
Yep.
And it is in absolutely every walk of life. Mm-hmm. There are examples of it. And I think there is an it gene that exists. Mm-hmm. And I think it's more widespread than just the one of ones, right? I think the one of ones are in a different stratosphere. But there is a thing that exists that makes people so focused on a certain goal and a thing that hopefully is for good, that is what consumes them. And like Kobe and MJ are one of the best examples ever for it, in different ways a little bit too. Because like, I mean, if you saw The Last Dance, you see how MJ's wired, man.
Oh, yeah.
He does not know how to not body bag you in anything.
He wants to destroy you.
Dude, he can't, and that's why he's a gambling addict. He can't not play for $5,000 a hole, which is chump changed him. Right. He can't not do that because he's like, even if, like, he's so crazy in that way that someone could walk up. I mean, I don't know if this has happened, but I would assume it probably has. Someone could walk up and be a scratch golfer. He's like a 10 or something like that, like a solid golfer, but not amazing. And like he'll say, we're playing no strokes. I'm going to beat your ass today. Because that is his thing. Like, he remembers every single time someone slighted him, you know, all this shit. And then you see with Kobe, you know, Kobe wasn't like you. He was the Mamba. And he's one of the few people who was able to give himself a name, and it clicked and it worked, right? And like, he's this thing. He has this, you don't think like me, get the fuck off my court.
Yep.
You know, and people, sometimes it took them time. It took years later. And in some cases, sadly, it took him dying for them to actually think about it and understand it. But it was just because he was built a little
wired different, man. As a competitor, to me, I have nothing but respect for that shit. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, if you're like the MJ type, I'm trying to get to that levels. I can never fucking get there. But please believe I'm going to spend all of my time busting my ass. They said Kobe didn't party. Kobe didn't go to no fucking clubs. Kobe was in the gym every fucking day. Even MJ didn't have that. MJ was a gambler. He smoked cigars and shit like that. Kobe was in the gym every fucking day because Kobe wanted to be the fucking best. If I'm on your team and I see that, how the fuck can I not get in line? You know what I mean? And I think that was one of the hardest parts about leadership for me. When I was a leader for some of the teams that I played on, is that not everybody is going to buy into that, and people that are wired like that can't understand why. Why? Then what the fuck are you doing out here then? What are you doing? We're here to bust ass. We're here to work hard, because when it comes time for the game, we want to be ready for every situation. We want to be able to have nothing phase us, period. We want to be ready for everything, right? So some guys can't fathom why you're not wired like that. You can never be on their level. Like BJ Armstrong said, in the last dance, if you don't love basketball, he was a hard guy to be around. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? For me, I would have loved it. And I look the same way for like a Bill Belichick, who's stern, who's hard, and who's the Patriot way, the structure. You say what you want to say about Bill and Tom, 10 Super Bowls, 6 rings. You can't argue with shit like that. Nope. So whatever he's doing has worked, and he's taken also a lot of guys that needed that. Some guys need a person like a fucking Jordan or someone like a Kobe that's going to get in your ass and hold you accountable, because that's what it is that. And there's also that standard that Jordan had and Kobe had. You come to the fucking Lakers, you're in the purple and gold, motherfucker. They've been doing this before I even got here. There's a standard. So if you can't buy into the standard, get the fuck out. How can I fucking love shit like that, bro. The competitor in me fucking loves that shit.
I want to throw a curveball at you.
Uh-oh. Okay.
I only started thinking of this recently.
Okay.
But I want to throw this curveball at you because it's a little bit of a mind fuck for me, and it stresses me out.
Okay.
Everything you just said is exactly how I think about it with those guys. They're just built different. Mm-hmm. It's like they don't understand not being able to win. Kobe and Michael were basketball players. It's entertainment. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a legacy. It's a sport. It's like we want to win. It is a money game. Like, the more you win, the more you make for the organization. Now, like, Michael owns an organization, and he's been not so great as an evaluator on the other side. But, you know, he was the best player to ever play the game. And it's like they were so consumed by that I wonder. Like, we view Michael's interesting. Let me go to Kobe. We view Kobe as, at the end of the day, society before he died had gotten to the point where they're like, you know, he's a really good guy. He's a really, really good guy. And I say put that to the side with Michael because, like, Michael is way more mysterious. It's harder to know, right? Like, Kobe was a later era. There's more see-through, whatever. Not that he didn't have flaws. He did. But, you know, it's like people really fucked with him, like, in that way. So it's like, all right, he's cool. But they were still doing something that wasn't life and death. And I've been thinking about this recently, and maybe it had to do with some of the stuff I'm studying, but I'm like, what if Kobe and Michael had been in charge of an upstart country? Would that consumed thing, let's say they took the same mentality to it, individually, right? Would that same thing drive them to want to win so bad that now, as a leader of a country where everything can be life and death, bad shit happens?
Yeah, it does. It is going to happen because I think that guys like that are expecting you to be at their level. There's a standard. there's a standard that what they don't understand is nobody can reach those standards besides them, right? Like, you say running a country, I'll look at it like this. MJ can never be a coach. Never.
I agree with you.
He can never be a coach because I think Kobe would have a little bit more success being a coach. I don't think Jordan could ever be a fucking coach because how are your players... First of all, they're being coached by the greatest of all fucking time, right? So just the intensity, his intensity in a level that he would be expecting them to play at, they're not able to attain that. They can't get to that level. So how as a team can you be successful? Because people are trying to, everybody has a role, right?
Mm-hmm.
How is everybody going to do their role when they're trying to be something almost they're not, which is trying to get to your level? It's not going to work out.
Let me add another curveball in then.
Okay.
Because I like the example you just gave. Let's even make it more crazy. And let's say he can never be the coach. And he can also especially never be the coach of a franchise he owns because he can't get fired, right? Mm-hmm. In the NBA, though, there are 30 teams. You have a draft. There's an order to it. You better be able to evaluate talent. And then you better be able to develop it when it comes in, right? And there's a level to which the combination of those things leaves control to the open market in that way of the other entities, the other teams, which are empowered under the same collective bargaining agreements to do what they have to do to build a team, can beat you if you suck at it. With the country example, though, if you're the coach of a country and you are also the owner because you run it as a dictator, you're not fireable.
No.
Now, we have seen examples of where this goes
yes, we have.
Very bad to where the country's fucked, like not making money, like Gaddafi, Saddam, shit like that.
I was thinking, my mind went right to Gaddafi.
Your mind's going right to that. Now, what about the other example, too? I pointed out earlier that, like, Hitler ended up falling under his own weight because he got too impatient. But the rise, like, if he hadn't gotten impatient, built a fucking machine. Because you know why?
I see what you're saying.
Because he has a country of borders and there's people who are born in there already. They don't get drafted to one of 30 teams. He has automatic access to any and all talent that lives within there.
I see where you're going.
If Michael Jordan had access to drafting LeBron and drafting Wade and drafting Chris Bosh and Carmelo Anthony in the same draft, even he probably couldn't fuck that up as like a bad coach.
Yeah.
So my curveball is, what if they're in a situation where they can't be fired and they get access to all the best? We're looking at it from an NBA scenario, but I'm saying that meant, and I do not want people to stretch this and say, I'm telling you that Kobe and Michael would have been Hitler or Gaddafi, or you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I'm saying, like, is it a possibility that the fallacy of human nature could make that type of mentality, when put in a different context and a way more higher stakes context, get the bad to come out because they're so relentless in the pursuit of being the best?
I see what you're saying. Okay, you fucked me up. Yeah, you fucked me up.
Yeah.
Okay. So are you saying, like, there could be a meteoric rise to power like a Hitler situation was with the Nazi Party because of the resources that they have available? Like you said, if he has the accessibility to LeBron, D-Wade, Kobe, if he has all them available to him and he can bring them in
a government scenario,
then of course he's going to be successful.
Yeah.
Of course.
I'm saying, like, in a parallel government scenario, not a basketball team.
Yeah.
Anymore. Just pretend that whatever their talents are in basketball, you could take those talents to, like, military, government,
they
whatever.
would be successful.
That's what I'm saying.
They would be successful.
And, like, would the success be good? That's what I struggle with.
Now, see.
That's my question.
What you have to think about then when I think about that is anybody else going to start to get power hungry eventually? Is anyone else going to try and then become the MJ? Is LeBron going to want to be the MJ? Because we all know, like I said, they're chasing ghosts. Kobe's chasing Michael. LeBron's chasing Kobe, chasing Michael. So they're all chasing. So when eventually does it get into your mind? Now, you know what? I have a role in this government. I'm the best at what I do, and I'm bringing out the best in my said field. I could probably do his job too. So when does it? So at what point does it become to the point where you stop hearing that MJ voice in your head and you start thinking, well, I'm saying I'm doing shit just as well too.
Now I'm gonna throw a change up at you.
Went from a curveball to a change up. Okay.
Yeah. So same scenario. Michael Jordan, athlete. You have a window. At some point, you lose a step, right? Your knees give out. Like he retired at the. I'm not counting when he came back with the Wizards to have fun. Right? Yeah. He retired at a perfect time because he knew like I was still the best. If I get started, I could feel my knee going wrong. Like let's get out of here. And he was still great when he came back. He just wasn't, Michael. What about when you're a leader, and you can run until you're Biden and kind of decrepit, right? Maybe you're 35 years old or 40 years old coming to power. You got a long window there. And any time, and it's also not a free market. If a LeBron comes into the scenario, unlike the fact that another team could draft him and you got to compete against him, no, you can put him in your own house and undermine him. You can put him in your own house. Right. So Michael never lets Kobe happen. He never lets LeBron happen because he gets control of that.
In that scenario, you're right, then. Jordan will be in power for as long as he wants to.
It's scary, man.
He'll be in power for as long as he wants.
I don't mean to make people bet, and I'm not saying he would be. I'm saying we need to open ourselves up to the possibility that gene, that trait could make you that.
He's definitely not giving up the reins to anybody else. He's definitely not giving up the reins to nobody else. Just that, and especially them, just that innate competitive wanting to be the best. Even at his worst, he might not think that is as bad as it is. He might not even be able to see it. Just because of his mental.
I'm gonna struggle with that one for a while. It's so crazy to think about because, these guys are just. There's just certain people who are wired different, they're put in they attack a niche that's beautiful for it to be wired different. But then if they attack the wrong niche where now people's livelihoods, let alone lives, are at stake, where does that mentality take you? It's dude, we are just so fucking interesting, like humans.
Yeah, I am so fascinated by the human brain that because there's what makes people do the things that they do? What makes people tick? What makes me and you who we are? You know what I mean? It's very, very interesting that I would love to be able to sit down with somebody that would have some answers to that and that they could tell me, because what makes someone wired the way they are, like an MJ or a Kobe or a Gretzky or somebody like that, or like a Randy Johnson or a Nolan Ryan or like a Jackie Robinson.
Yeah.
What is it in their mind that gives them that it factor that you're talking about, right? That thing that makes them special. We say it's just God-given ability, right? What is it in their mind? Because something makes them tick. Something makes them feel the way that they feel that me and you don't feel.
Yeah.
Right? What is it about their brain that gets them to that point? I've always wondered about people like that. What makes him as smart as he is? You know what I mean? What is it in him? Elon, talking about Elon.
Yeah. But look at the other people on the wall too.
I know.
I'm just thinking about that. What makes look at what Jay-Z's done.
Right.
The guy started as a rapper. Is he a rapper anymore?
Dealer. Nah.
No.
Past it.
And he still does it. Still
Past
great.
It, yep.
But look at all the other shit. What does that? Muhammad Ali.
Yep.
That
Don't
guy,
even get me started. That motherfucker was different.
He wasn't, dude. I think he was an athlete second.
He was.
And he's one of the greatest to ever live.
Yep.
I don't know.
I don't know what makes people wired the way they are, but I would love to know. I would love to know. It's got to be something in our brain that triggers something. What is it? They'll never be able to figure out what goes on with our brain because, you can't really study people's brain when they're alive. And there's not much activity, obviously, when they're dead. So, we'll never be able to truly know. But people like that amaze me because they are so talented. So talented. I'm just what makes them be that way?
I love how you're looking at it from the chemical scenario too, like the inner workings
it's
of the brain.
It's something in your head, yeah.
Because let's stay with the wall here. Muhammad Ali, Kurt Cobain. I'm just naming a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
Kurt Cobain, Elon, Jay-Z, and Marlon Brando. All of those people who did all different things too. Mostly, I think. There is something that when the average person understands that they already have attention or whatever, or maybe even at the beginning, just a more intuitive person sees them before anyone knows who they are, where they watch it and they go, that's different.
Mm-hmm.
There's something different. But I pointed out those examples because those people are wildly different.
Yes.
You do not, the first two I named, Muhammad Ali and Kurt Cobain, you look at the two of them in separate rooms, let's say it has a divider between them, and you get to look like a science experiment between the two. There is nothing in common between those two that meets the eye.
Oh, yeah.
But there is a thing that when Kurt picks up the fucking guitar and puts a Marlboro, I think he smoked Marlboros or Newports, one of them, in his mouth, and then fucking rips it out and starts playing some chords and then starts doing something, you're like, whoa.
Like, what the fuck is that?
And then when this motherfucker
Starts talking.
I wasn't even gonna get to the talking. Start with the boxing. You see that's different. Then you get to the talking and you're like, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I'm gonna make his ancestors feel. And you're like,
yeah, you're like, what the fuck is that?
I went in the room, turned off the room, I was in bed before the light turned off. Like, you see that and you're like,
I've never seen it before.
Right.
But there are people that, I'll use Ali for an example, that will talk that way, right? But with an Ali, you feel it.
Yes.
Like you like
if
you
I
feel
said
it.
If I said I'm gonna float like a butterfly,
That's what I'm
and sting
saying.
like a bee, you're like, get the fuck.
That's what
outta
I'm
here.
saying. Like a Ray Lewis, right? He'll give you a fucking speech about writing your fucking paper. You'll be ready to fucking write the fuck out of that paper. You're ready to run through a fucking brick wall. Some people just, something about them, they're fucking, it's like their aura and their vibe. It'll fucking just run through your fucking body. You know what I mean? That's the effect that Mills had on me when we were playing football. When we were young kids, he used to get me fucking jacked up. You know what I mean? But some people just have that kind of effect on you. You know what I mean? And it's something is just, I don't know. I can't put my finger on it as to what it is. We call it God-given abilities. It's God-given. But
you pointed out the chemical.
I'm just saying, what is it in your mind?
Yes.
That gives you that? It's something.
That's my question.
Yeah, it's something.
Physically, I pointed out how physically they look different, and then they sound, the senses that we have take it differently. But is there the same chemical? Is there the same flow that happens in a different outlet? One's creative, one's an athlete, one's a businessman, one's a fucking actor, right? Like, there's differences there. But is it the same tract in the neurons? Or some people who study the brain are going to yell at me, but you know what I mean?
It's something, because when I'm looking at all these people on the wall, I'm looking at all these people and thinking, he didn't give a fuck, she didn't give a fuck, he didn't give a fuck, she didn't give a fuck, none of them give a fuck about what nobody else fucking thought. Something in their brain was wired, you know what? This is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is what I do. Ali said, I'm not going to no motherfucking war. Lock me up, pretty much. Didn't give a fuck about losing years off his. You know what I'm saying? Didn't care. Didn't care.
Changed his name. Hold on.
Everything. Didn't care about losing years when he was in his prime. When he was in his prime, Conor McGregor. I'm not the biggest McGregor fan either, but the way he didn't give a fuck about what he said. I'm gonna knock you out in the first round. Period.
The reason I have respect for him is he talks a lot of shit, and minus Khabib, because I think the two of them actually legitimately hate each other.
No,
but
that's deep.
That's deep.
Yeah.
That shit's I always say, like, that's an asterisk. But everyone else, in victory and defeat, he is everything you want.
Yeah.
Because when he beats someone, like when he really embarrassed Cowboy Cerrone, he yelled at everyone who was like, how dare you disrespect that guy? That guy got in the ring with me. He talks so much shit on him. Right. It's like, he has my respect forever. He fucking hugged his grandma. When he lost to Diaz, he was like, that motherfucker beat me tonight. He's a champion. I'll rise up. I'll fucking beat his ass, but right now it's his.
And it's the same with Ali.
Yeah.
And those guys, them two specifically.
That's why I have them next to each other. That's what they got in common.
I know going into a fight, that's got to kind of fuck with you a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this motherfucker don't give a fuck. Ali don't give a fuck.
No.
You know? Ali's coming here talking all this shit, and he believes everything he's saying to me. I'm going to knock you out in the first round. You don't stand a chance. So his confidence and his swagger is already there when we get into the ring. So not only do I have to beat Ali the boxer, but I got to compete with the swag and the attitude and and you add on top of that the skills. Tough. Greatest of all time. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I just love what you brought up, though, because I'm going to look into that, because I never have looked deeply at that. Like, is there a commonality in there that at least gets you on the same road?
Right.
Like, do they start driving down the same road and take different exits, right?
Right.
Like, within the brain. It's interesting.
Because all these people here are wired somewhat the same. Because like I said, even Rihanna, she doesn't give a fuck either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And-
savage.
Dude, and it's I'm the biggest Rihanna fan.
Yeah, me too. You know, savage. You know what I mean?
It's like, and they still all have flaws and everything, but even like at certain things, like Steve Jobs, for example, who I love and was incredible and all these things. Sometimes in the gym, I will listen to those tracks on YouTube that have like the speaker with like the music in the background. I'll go through little phases with that. I'm not gonna lie though, I'm a fucking huge fan of Steve Jobs. Study him inside and out. I think he was incredible. When he comes on and he's giving me the dots speech where he talks about how the dots connect, I love that when I'm listening to it outside of the gym. I'm less of a fan of it when I listen to it in the gym. Whereas when Ray Lewis comes into my ears and goes, I heard a whisper, I'm like, my whole mind goes, oh my God.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
Like that's his
Like
thing,
I'm about to kill somebody.
right?
You
Like,
know what I mean?
Ray's not telling me how to use my 5 fingers as the greatest clickers ever on my phone, but like he is telling me like, you hear that whisper?
Yeah.
You know, whereas Steve,
It's a man's game.
yeah, dude.
You know what I
There's
mean?
just like, and that's the beauty of humanity.
That shit gets me jacked up and going, bro.
Oh my God.
It's a man's game. Yes, the fuck it is.
Oh my
You know what I mean?
It's incredible.
Yeah,
it's
is.
incredible. Shan, I have been bad the last, not in a row, but some of these episodes I get so deep talking to somebody that I actually never look up at the clock and I don't stop it. I had one go for like 5 hours the other day.
Did you really?
Yeah, then I'm gonna have to, I'm gonna just cut it off and leave people hanging at like 3. Because I looked at him, I'm like, Gio, fuck man, it's like 3 a.m. We started at like 10. But you know, I'm looking now and we're like I think we're right at about 3 hours. I'd stay talking to you all
Yeah, me
fucking
too.
day.
Yeah.
This was, dude, I've now had all 3 of you on the show. I knew this from watching the show, so Faces of the Future.
Yeah.
I knew you guys are all different. But like when I get you in here, it is such a different vibe every time. I've had Miles, I've had Moose, and now I've had you. And in very different ways, I could stay talking to you guys all fucking night. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, man.
You were amazing.
Hey, man. Thank you for having me. It was
Bro,
I'm in the fucking bunker, man. This shit is dope, bro.
Yeah, dude, I love, because like when Miles first came on, that was like the thing you texted me. You're like, the fucking bunker's a vibe, man.
The bunker. I love the name of it and everything, man. It's a great vibe in here.
I'm like, this guy hasn't even been here yet, and he's saying that. So I love that. But I want to have you in here again, obviously, as I said to the two of them.
You got to come on our show now.
Oh, dude, you tell me when.
Yeah.
I'm in. So Faces of the Future, people can get on Apple and Spotify, and you guys are also
everywhere.
doing YouTube now, too,
Yeah,
right?
we're everywhere. All platforms. Check us out, man.
All
Please.
right. I will put that link in the description as my own little sale of that show as well. I did not know any of you guys before Miles and I had somebody in common, and he and I started talking, and then I had him on here, and then I had Moose and had you. But when I went to listen to that show, the thing that really attracted me to it is Miles has like the podcast platform here with you guys on top of his business. So it's like, it's a pure side hustle kind of deal, but you guys have true conversations about shit.
Yeah, we do.
I cannot predict what the opinions are going to be. So I'm like a snob with podcasts. I need podcasts that are open and you're kind of like, oh, wow, they said that. But I'm not just saying this.
It's raw, man.
Dude, I've backed it up. I've had 3 of these guys all on the show. I'm going to have them on again. People, if you're looking for good, solid conversations, you guys do like 60 and 90-minute episodes.
Yeah.
They're on Zoom. We got to get you in a fucking studio.
Yeah.
I told the other guys.
Yeah, we do.
We have to do that. But the conversations are fucking great. So you've had a chance to hear Miles, number 42, Moose, 47. I think this is going to be 53 or 54. So you can get a vibe for where these guys are all coming from. But this conversation today,
It was awesome, bro. I had a great time.
dude,
I had a great time.
it built all off that first theme.
Yeah, it did.
You know, it started Israel, Palestine, but we tied it all into that without saying those words too, which was so fucking cool. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you for having me, man. Hey, live from the bunker, baby.
Live from the bunker. Everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to me. Peace.